Chapter 691. The three of them were also stunned by the 7 weapons. All of them were of the highest quality. According to the divine bird's estimation, the worst was 15th grade. Li Feng stared at the 3 divine swords. Each of them was of a higher grade than the one in his hand. He was confident that with any one of these 3 divine swords, even if he could not fight against the superior god sacrifice, he could at least stay alive. If he had 2 swords in hand, he could definitely fight against the superior god sacrifice. Meika had her eyes on the divine protection garment. As for the other weapons, she did not need them at all. The people of the Plum clan were not a fighting race. If she took them back, they would only be a bomb that could blow the Plum clan into pieces at any time. I want this divine protection garment. You guys can split the other 6 among yourselves. Meika pounced on the purple divine protection garment without hesitation, as if she was afraid that others would snatch it from her. Yi Qinghan also walked towards the gloves. As soon as he touched them, the dragon blood stirred restlessly. The gloves were very soft, but they were both defensive and offensive. They could defend against divine weapons and attack the sun, moon, mountains, and rivers. Made from dragon skin. Yi Qinghan looked at the texture of the gloves and recognized the origin of the gloves at a glance. He could not help but be shocked by the identity of the person who made this pair of gloves. He was probably the only one who could use dragon skin to make gloves. This was not a mixed-blood dragon, but a real giant dragon. Who in this world can kill a giant dragon and peel off its skin to make gloves? Yi Qinghan played with the gloves and did not pay attention to the other divine weapons. He was excited for a long time before he chose to drip blood on it. He originally thought that such gloves would have a weapon spirit that would resist and not let him control it. He did not expect that once the dragon blood entered the gloves, it would immediately rush towards Yi Qinghan's palm and automatically seal itself, firmly locking onto Yi Qinghan's wrist. Boom! A large amount of information about the gloves and how to use them appeared in his mind. God-severing gloves. A 16th grade top gloves that could be upgraded on its own, but it required top-grade dragon blood. The weapon spirit, the colossal dragon's soul, could only be awakened when the owner reached chief god level. Once awakened before that, the weapon spirit could instantly wipe out the glove's owner's soul. The accompanying fist technique was the heaven-splitting fist technique, which had a total of 36 punches. It was a 16th grade main secret technique, and when one practiced the 36th punch, one could punch through a middle plane. The first punch could drain the power of one divinity in a mid-level god priest's body. The second punch required the power of 10 divinities in a mid-level god priest's body. The third punch required the power of 100 divinities in a top-level mid-level expert's body. As for the fourth punch, a single punch could kill an existence like Li Feng. The fifth punch could make an ordinary superior god priest cough up blood. The might of the sixth punch and onwards was immeasurable. Once one reached the level of a major god, one would be able to unleash all 36 punches. The power of the 36th punch was not something that a superior god priest could hope to achieve, not even the Lord of Abyss. It could split open the sky above and collapse the underworld below. There was only a 1-level difference between a major god and a superior god, but the difference was like heaven and earth. It was completely unimaginable what kind of existence the Chaos Giant God, who was even more powerful than a major god, was. He was actually able to destroy the chaotic universe and divide it into countless small planes. There were 3,000 small planes and countless upper planes. Just as Yi Qinghan was absorbing the memories of the god-severing gloves, the gloves suddenly contracted. It was as if thousands of needles had pierced Yi Qinghan's palms and were madly absorbing Yi Qinghan's divine power. The divine power of the 7 divinities was depleted in a short span of 3 breaths. The space within a spatial divinity was extremely vast, and the divine power it contained was even more than the total amount of divine power of the other divinities, but it could not withstand the absorption of the god-severing gloves. The 5 elemental divinities of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth were all sucked dry, and the gloves actually began to absorb Yi Qinghan's vitality. Fuck! The divine bird was shocked. This pair of gloves could actually absorb the divine power of a spiritual pet through a contract. Yi Qinghan was shocked. If this continued, he would be sucked dry. Swish. Yi Qinghan summoned Berserk and transferred the power of chaos from the god of chaos source for the gloves to absorb. At this moment, he could clearly feel that the gloves were ignoring the shackles on the god of chaos source and were absorbing the power of chaos without restraint. The overflowing power of chaos gradually spread to his arms. His arms were swollen and painful as if they were about to explode. Kachida Yi Qinghan clenched his fists. His forehead was sweating, and his eyes were filled with shock. He wanted to take off the gloves, but the gloves were stuck in his hands and he could not get rid of them at all. If the power of the god of chaos source was not enough, the gloves could definitely kill him. Li Feng and Mecha noticed that something was wrong with Yi Qinghan. Their eyes were filled with doubt as they stared at the gloves. They realized that the gloves were emitting a faint pressure that was getting stronger and stronger, as if a giant dragon had awakened. It was frightening. What kind of gloves are these? What a strong dragon aura! Mecha asked in shock. Li Feng stared at Yi Qinghan. He realized that not only did the gloves have dragon aura, but Yi Qinghan's dragon aura was even stronger. His potential had been dug out. His dragon blood was boiling, and his veins were bulging. He could explode and die at any time. Only a body like Yi Qinghan's could withstand such blood flow. I am a giant dragon. A voice exploded in Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness. Then, it was as if there was an endless galaxy in his mind. A giant dragon flew into the sky and burrowed into the ground. He fought all the heroes in the world. The high gods were defeated, and the master gods retreated. In the age of chaos, he soared and shook the 9 heavens. Heaven-splitting fist art. The first fist, star split. The giant dragon transformed into a burly man. His fist broke through a small planet in the age of chaos. The high god priest couldn't withstand this punch. This was the power of the heaven-splitting fist art in the hands of a master god giant dragon. It was something that the medium god priest couldn't imagine. Yi Qinghan couldn't produce such an aura. Although his body was strong, it was only comparable to the medium god priest. It couldn't be compared to the giant dragons in the age of chaos. The second fist, reverse mountains and rivers. Boom! The 9 heavens galaxy surged, and the aura rushed for thousands of miles. The high god priest couldn't even withstand the burly man's aura. The third fist, the burly man's fist art became faster and faster. The speed at which he drew the power from the god of chaos also became faster and faster. Yi Qinghan's arm almost couldn't withstand the flow of the god of chaos power. His face was distorted, and the pain was unbearable. His whole body trembled. Roar! Yi Qinghan roared to the sky. His voice turned into a dragon's roar. Li Feng and Mecha were so frightened that they quickly left the room. At this moment, Yi Qinghan's aura was too terrifying. It was so terrifying that even Li Feng couldn't withstand it. It was as though he was facing a master god. The burly man punched out. The quintessence of the fist art seemed to be engraved in Yi Qinghan's mind. As long as he had enough strength, he could produce the exact same move. There was no need to learn it. After the 6th punch, Yi Qinghan's aura reached its peak. His mind was in a mess because of the burly man's aura. His soul spirit was dispirited, and the god of chaos divine source was completely drained. Yi Qinghan was on the verge of death. The boxing glove finally stopped absorbing the divine power. However, the burly man in his consciousness had also disappeared. Chapter 692. Li Feng held 2 swords in his hands while Mecha hugged the god-protecting garment in her hands. Their eyes were filled with horror as they had never seen anyone who could raise their aura to such an extent, far surpassing that of a high-level god priest. At this moment, the 2 of them stood at the stone door, waiting for Yi Qinghan to wake up. At this point, Yi Qinghan was finally able to control his body and soul. With a flick of his finger, the gauntlet fused with his flesh and blood. His palms exuded divine might, profound mysteries, and inscriptions. They were like divine weapons, no longer made of flesh and blood. Huff! Yi Qinghan's breathing was rapid. He had been shocked just now and had almost died by his own weapon. He didn't even have time to look at the 4 divine weapons on the shelf. He immediately sat cross-legged on the ground, mobilized the supreme-grade divine crystals, and began to absorb divine power. With the support of the God-severing gloves, the speed at which he absorbed divine power was much faster than others. The divine crystals were originally incomparably hard, but now they had turned into tofu dregs and shattered with a light pinch. The gloves automatically absorbed the divine power and sent it into his limbs and bones. Most of the divine power was sent into the Godhead. The spatial Godhead was first filled with divine power after consuming half a supreme-grade divine crystal. Then it was the 5 elements Godhead, the lightning Godhead. In a full 2 hours, Yi Qinghan used 2 supreme-grade divine crystals to fill all 8 Godheads in his body. The abundant divine power spread out in the Godhead like a vast ocean, endless and endless. When he stood up again, Yi Qinghan's temperament became domineering, sharp, and dignified. He was no longer the reserved and cultured manner head Yi. His slender body once again grew taller and returned to his body. This improvement was based on the situation where the divine chaos source was emptied, and he had almost been killed by the God-severing gloves. Yi Qinghan exhaled a mouthful of turbid air and thought to himself, "The weapon spirit has not awakened yet, but it almost killed me. It seems that I must not awaken the weapon spirit before reaching the peak state of a high-level god priest." Raising his eyes to look at the 3 divine weapons on the shelf, he reached out and grabbed them in his palm. These divine weapons were all high-tier divine weapons. His middle-tier Qianquan ring could not be stored in them at all. Helpless, he could only carry them on his back. Yi Qinghan looked up at Li Feng. At this moment, Li Feng felt a great deal of pressure. He could no longer be a unique existence. Finally, there was someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with him in the realm of mid-level priests. "Congratulations, Manor Head Yi," Li Feng said in a serious tone. "Same to you. Let's go deeper." Yi Qinghan carried a sword, a spear, and a halberd on his back as he led the way. All the good stuff was in the depths, and the periphery was only filled with ordinary items for the offerings of the higher gods. The 3 of them gradually approached the depths. Suddenly, a snowy figure floated by, followed by a powerful existence, Xian Yanxue. The 2 of them held hands and carefully advanced. They actually ran to the left of Yi Qinghan and the others. Yi Qinghan saw them and casually tossed the sword on his back to Xian Yanxue. He said calmly, "I obtained it by accident. You can have it. I don't use swords. Carrying it on my back will hinder my movements." Xian Yanxue was overjoyed. This was a high-tier divine weapon, a top-tier divine sword. Its value surpassed that of the 10 prefectures' territories. This sort of thing was priceless. Holding the divine sword, Xian Yanxue was unable to contain his excitement. He immediately dripped blood on it to bind it to him. However, the divine sword had a spirit, and it actually wanted to resist. The words "heaven-raising" appeared on the back of the sword, and it almost swallowed Xian Yanshue's soul. Li Feng and Yi Qinghan both supported Xian Yanxue at the same time, and Shuer followed closely behind. Finally, the situation was stabilized. This heaven-raising sword is indeed a good sword. Having a high-tier divine sword in my life, I can die without regrets. Xian Yanxue waved the sharp sword and said happily. He didn't feel the slightest bit of fear. If it weren't for Yi Qinghan, Shuer, and Li Feng supporting him and suppressing the heaven-raising sword, he would have already been sucked dry. A high-tier divine weapon wasn't that easy to obtain. Even if one obtained it, it wasn't that easy to subdue. At this moment, Yi Qinghan deeply felt that. Just now, the God-severing gloves had almost taken his life. Now that he encountered Xian Yanshue's heaven-raising sword, he was even more cautious. Since we've encountered each other, let's go deeper together, Yi Qinghan said calmly. Li Feng didn't refuse. Although Xian Yanxue and Shuer's battle prowess was average, with the heaven-raising sword, they could already cause him harm. Xian Yanshue's current battle prowess could definitely suppress the top 3 on the wind cloud list. Behind them, High God Wu Yu was trapped in the Star River by the divine bird. He couldn't open the stone door, nor could he find the exit. His hair was disheveled, and he wanted nothing more than to tear Yi Qinghan to shreds and scatter his ashes. But, Yi Qinghan, I'm going to kill you. High God, you didn't understand the 8 trigrams heavenly astral formation. At least, he wasn't very proficient in it. On the other side, Emperor Yi and the others undid the God-binding chains and carefully moved forward. Some were on the defense, while others were in the vanguard. They were afraid that if they encountered a high-tier divine shrine, they would be instantly wiped out. With Emperor Ye's zither playing, they obtained a lot of treasures. Everyone more or less got some divine pills and elixirs, and even some top-tier 13-tier divine weapons. However, they didn't get any high-tier divine weapons. After all, they were still in the outermost region. After exploring another treasure trove, they happily split the treasures. Not long after, they came to a fork in the road. Suddenly, they cried out and looked into the distance. Zhong Tian High God. How could Emperor Yi not recognize this person? He was one of the 3 high gods of God organization. Emperor Yi and the others retreated and began to spread out. They stood at the various entrances and looked at Zhong Tian High God with vigilance. Zhong Tian High God, if you want to kill someone, think carefully before you act. Do you think you can kill everyone in the inner sect? Emperor Yi warned in a deep voice. Zhong Tian High God didn't expect to encounter Emperor Ye's group at this moment. Otherwise, he would have been able to kill everyone in the inner sect. But now, he didn't have the chance. They had spread out, and he wasn't confident that he could kill all of them. After all, the inner sect members were not to be trifled with. Even if they couldn't fight the high-tier divine shrine, they could still avoid it. Emperor Ye's warning was effective. At least, it intimidated Zhong Tian High God. Zhong Tian High God coldly snorted and stared at Emperor Yi. Killing Emperor Yi now was the best way to take revenge on Yi Qinghan. But if they killed Emperor Yi, wouldn't the 9 remoteness master come after them? Even if they weren't the ones who killed Emperor Yi, the 9 remoteness master would still put the blame on them. Scram. This old man has no interest in killing a stinking brat. Zhong Tian High God coldly said. Emperor Yi hugged his zither and retreated. He and Medusa moved to the side and left Zhong Tian High God's line of sight. They turned and fled. The inner sect members scattered and fled. They were all lost. Yi Qinghan didn't know that the inner sect members had already entered the divine treasury. He ran into the depths of the treasury with Li Feng and the others. The stone walls kept moving like a moving maze. It was getting more and more dangerous. The door of life could turn into a door of death at any time. Chapter 693. In the depths of the divine treasure, one could reach heaven if they were alive, or hell if they were dead. Life and death were decided with a single thought. The 5 of them had a solemn look in their eyes. This was different from the outside world, where even if they lost, they still had a chance of survival. Here, it was purely a mechanical tomb designed by the Master God. It had no emotions, only strict order, and life and death were determined by themselves. Just as they entered the depths, they were faced with the choice of life and death. The 5 passages were almost identical. At least from the inscriptions, they were completely the same. It was hard to imagine how much effort the Master God had put into creating this divine treasure. It depended on luck. Here, one could only rely on luck to obtain treasures. There was no other way. Those who were lucky could not only survive, but also obtain a large amount of treasures. Those who were unlucky could only die. There was no other way. Inside the divine treasure, everything was equal. Whether it was the superior gods or the 9 serenities master, as long as their cultivation did not exceed the person who created the divine treasure, they were equal. They were just ants. The 5 of them looked at each other, and then 4 of them looked at Yi Qinghan. In terms of luck, it seemed that no one could surpass Yi Qinghan. Most importantly, Yi Qinghan had the devouring divine parrot with him. Its senses were definitely unprecedented. The path it chose was at least 10 times safer than the path chosen by ordinary people. This was the first time Yi Qinghan encountered a path that was purely based on intuition. He, who had a strong desire to control, was helpless. He could only leave his life in the hands of the devouring divine parrot. When the divine bird saw that everyone was staring at it, it immediately felt a sense of accomplishment. It was insufferably arrogant and couldn't wait to choose the path immediately. Wait, Let this divine bird study it properly. I guarantee that you will earn a lot. However, this divine bird. The divine bird paused and took the opportunity to say, when we enter the depths, I want to monopolize 30% of the treasures. Master, you can't fight with me. I have the priority to choose. Yi Qinghan's lips curled up. He knew that this bitch bird would take the opportunity to take advantage of him. The benefits in the depths of the divine treasures were far more than just enormous, and it was a single bird that could monopolize 30% of the profits. Li Feng and the others all curled their lips, but there was nothing they could do about it. Who asked it to be a devouring divine parrot? Shui Er and Shui Er didn't care. They shrugged and agreed. Mecha had no choice but to agree. The divine bird represented Yi Qinghan. There was no need to argue with Yi Qinghan for benefits. She could only agree. If it's about swordsmanship and divine weapons, I want to have the priority to choose. As for the rest, I don't care. I don't care. Li Feng spoke his mind. He really wasn't interested in other things. No problem. This divine bird is not interested in swords or sword techniques. The divine bird was even more indifferent. It was only interested in divine pills and treasures. After the discussion, the divine bird stared at the 5 passageways. It closed its eyes and sensed the depths of the passageway. Dense killing intent permeated the air, affecting people's judgment. However, the divine bird was born to seek advantages and avoid disadvantages. It quickly eliminated 4 passageways and chose the second one on the right. After confirming the path, the 5 of them guarded the 4 directions. Yi Qinghan and the divine bird walked at the front. Li Feng was at the back. He carried a divine sword on his back and held another in his hand. He was very vigilant. Shui Er and Mecha guarded the right. They had to remember every change in the stone walls in order to find the order of the divine treasures changes. Yi Qinghan was barehanded, but he felt safer than holding Berserk. The passageway was only 5 meters wide, and Berserk couldn't be used at all. With the support of the gloves, even if there was a 13th grade divine beast in front of him, he could kill it with one punch. His eyes were like torches, shining with golden light. They were like the eyes of a dragon. He could see the order of the inscriptions on the stone walls. The inscriptions were constantly glowing, as if they were different words, indicating the path of life and death. The passageway continued to extend into different paths. Each fork had 5 paths. 4 were dead ends, and 3 paths led to a fork. The chance of survival was only 1 out of 64. Only the Master God knew what he would face if he made the wrong choice. The divine bird was very talented. It made the right choice 4 times in a row. On the 5th fork, there were 9 paths. This should be the last one. If they made the right choice, they would be able to enter the real divine treasures. They could choose a large number of treasures at will. None of them is the life path. Only when 9 return to 1 can it be the life path. The divine bird was silent for a long time. Swoosh, 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 that the 9 stone doors kept moving. Sometimes, 2 of them would return to 1, and sometimes they would switch positions. It was so fast that it was difficult to distinguish. The 5 of them stood at the fork for a long time. They didn't find any mechanism around them to make the 9 doors return to 1. Suddenly, the 9 doors shook and merged with each other. Only 2 stone doors were left. 2 big words appeared in the middle of the stone doors. Life, death. The 2 words life and death shot out golden rays in all directions. It was incomparably majestic, like the eyes of the Master God. Fated ones, welcome to the door of life and death. As long as you can enter the door of life and death alive, you will be able to obtain a treasure. A sorrowful voice came from the door of life and death. However, no one could be sure if it came from the door of life or the door of death. The door of life and death will immediately reveal life and death. Choose one out of the 2. Those who retreat will live. Those who enter will have a 50% chance of death. The voice sounded again, shaking the hearts and souls of the heroes. Can we choose to return to one of the 2 doors? Yi Qinghan asked probingly. Yes, as long as you can return the door of life and death, you will be able to reach the center of the divine treasures and directly control the divine treasures, the voice answered without hesitation. The pupils of Yi Qinghan and the rest shrunk. They looked at each other in dismay. They couldn't believe that there was a living thing in the divine treasures. It could answer their question. There is no need to probe. The mechanism to return the door of life and death is not on the outside. It is on the inside. If the method to control the divine treasures is so simple, why would we wait for you to come here? The voice inside reminded them. If they wanted to obtain the treasure and control the divine treasures, they would have to take risks step by step. Once they entered the door of death, they would immediately be faced with life and death. No one could resist the killing intent of the divine treasures. At this moment, the divine bird hesitated. The door of life and death was constantly changing positions on the stone door. The chaotic aura inside interfered with the divine bird's perception. It felt that both doors were the door of death and the door of life. Let's rely on luck. Let's take a risk. Yi Qinghan said without hesitation. Which door do you choose? We will follow you. Xian Yanxue said firmly. I will also follow you. You decide. Li Feng said quickly. Yi Qinghan clenched his fists. This time he was making a choice with the lives of the other four. If he made the right choice, he would live. If he made the wrong choice, he would die together. He narrowed his eyes and chose the door on the right. He walked in without hesitation. As soon as he entered the door, he was immediately teleported out of the sight of the other four. The other four followed him in without hesitation. They were teleported to 4 different rooms. After entering the door of death, life and death would immediately be determined. The 5 of them didn't die, which meant that they had made the right choice. Congratulations to the 5 fated ones for entering the divine treasures. In each room, there is a treasure. There are defensive divine weapons, offensive divine weapons, secret divine skills, and high-grade bloodlines. Each of you can choose one. Once you choose, you can't change. The voice sounded again. Chapter 694. In the 5 rooms, the divine weapons, divine pills, and miraculous medicines were all different. In Yi Qinghan's room, there were all kinds of divine weapons and top-notch elixirs that could resurrect the dead. He loved every single one of them. The divine bird's shifty eyes flickered as it took the initiative to break the contract with Yi Qinghan. It chuckled and asked, "Can I also choose a supreme treasure?" "No, you are one with him." That voice faintly refused. The divine bird glared at him and said unhappily, "I'm not one with him. You can't discriminate. I have an independent soul. Since I'm here, I should have the right to choose a treasure. You said it yourself." That voice hesitated, which made Yi Qinghan suspect that this voice was the artifact spirit of this divine treasury tomb. This divine treasury was a huge weapon, and only the artifact spirit could live. Yi Qinghan's guess was right. The artifact spirit didn't have much intelligence and only knew how to make decisions according to order. The divine bird's question made it confused as it didn't know if it should let the divine bird take a supreme treasure. The divine bird continued to chatter and deceive the artifact spirit. It almost made the artifact spirit unable to accept it. The entire divine treasury trembled and almost lost control. God said that the world is equal and all living things are equal. You can't discriminate against me because I am a divine bird and not give me a chance. The divine bird spoke frankly with assurance. In short, if you don't give it to me, I will talk until you give it to me. The corner of Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. This bird's guts were sometimes bigger than his. It dared to deceive under such circumstances and wanted a treasure. Then, all right, you can also choose one. The artifact spirit finally compromised and didn't want to argue with the divine bird anymore. As long as the divine bird didn't cross the bottom line, it had no right to take the initiative to kill people. This was the requirement left behind by the Master God back then. The artifact spirit could only act according to the will left behind by the Master God. The divine bird was overjoyed and put a big bottle of divine pills into its spatial ring. It didn't have the slightest interest in those divine weapons. Yi Qinghan didn't see clearly what kind of pill the divine bird had put into the space, and he didn't ask. His little mind was also spinning. Since the divine bird could get it, the other spiritual pets shouldn't have a problem either. Therefore, Yi Qinghan took the initiative to release all the spiritual pet contracts in his body. The multicolored snake, the god-slaying eagle, the fire crow, the golden crow, and the star-twining vine, the 5 divine beasts and spiritual plants, had no choice but to let them take one each. The golden crow searched for a long time and chose a secret technique, fire god's glory. He could allow it to cultivate and refine a tier 13 divine flame to a tier 14 divine flame, or even a tier 15 divine flame. As for whether it could reach a tier 16 divine flame, that would depend on its luck. The fire crow had been silent for too long. Its cultivation had gradually fallen behind. There was nothing it could do about it. The level of its bloodline was too low. Perhaps there was a good opportunity for it to appear this time. After searching for a long time, it had actually found the vermilion bird bloodline. Although this drop of essence blood belonged to the lowest level of the vermilion bird bloodline, it was much higher than its own bloodline. It was even higher than the current multicolored snake and the god-slaying eagle. The multicolored snake obtained a crimson refinement dragon transformation technique, which could allow it to evolve into a dragon. The star-twining vine was just a glutton. It chose a bottle of elixir pills, divine spiritual pills. There were more than 100 elixirs in the bottle, and one pill could allow it to recover from a starving state to a full state. The energy contained in one divine spiritual pill could cause a middle great perfection cultivator to explode. It was the favorite of high-ranking god priests, but it was also the star-twining vine's favorite. The god-slaying eagle's luck was not bad. It found a divine ability, Eagle Strikes the 9 Heavens, which was a low-grade divine ability of the chief god. It was a tier 16 divine ability that the entire middle plane did not have. After the 6 divine beasts obtained their treasures, they immediately took the initiative to form a contract with Yi Qinghan and return to Yi Qinghan's body. The divine treasure's artifact spirit was helpless. It could not change the will left behind by the chief god, which allowed Yi Qinghan to take advantage of it. Yi Qinghan looked around. What he lacked the most now was not a secretary or an offensive divine artifact. The god-severing gloves were enough. What he needed the most now was a defensive divine robe or a soul defensive divine artifact. Only then would he be able to contend against the high-ranking god priests. After searching for a long time, he still could not find anything. He could only ask the artifact spirit. He bowed and said, "Sir, there is no divine artifact here that I want. Can I ask for it?" The artifact spirit quickly replied, "No problem. As long as it is in the other rooms, I can transfer it to you. The prerequisite is that they did not choose it. I want a tier 16 soul defensive divine artifact or a tier 16 protective divine robe." Yi Qinghan had a clear goal. The treasures he was looking for now were to deal with the high-ranking god priests. He could not always count on the 9 remoteness master. The artifact spirit pondered for a moment and said calmly, "There is only one Lord-level soul defensive divine artifact in the entire divine treasure, but it is not in this room. There is a tier 15 top-grade high-ranking defensive divine artifact. It can block the soul attacks of any high-ranking god priests below the chief god level. If you need it, I can transfer it to you." "Okay, I want it," Yi Qinghan quickly replied. Whoosh! With a flash of light, an object that looked like a luminous pearl appeared in Yi Qinghan's hand. It was crystal clear and emitted light. This object is called the Soul Suppression Pearl. It guards the sea of consciousness. As long as the soul does not face the chief god, it will not be damaged. Moreover, it can increase one's mental strength and has the effect of purifying one's soul. Cultivation will be twice the result with half the effort, the artifact spirit calmly explained. Yi Qinghan did not hesitate to put it into his sea of consciousness. His soul felt refreshed, and his mental strength increased by 30%. Moreover, it was slowly increasing. "I want this treasure," Yi Qinghan said excitedly. After choosing his treasure, Yi Qinghan was quickly transferred out of the room and entered the second room. At that moment, Li Feng and Xianyan Xue were already waiting in the second room. Only Xue, and Mecca had not been chosen yet. Women are so troublesome. They must be so fond of everything that they can't put it down. That's why they haven't appeared yet. The divine bird said disdainfully. Xian Yanxue and the others smiled and waited quietly. They did not ask what the other party had obtained in the room. This was a trump card, a life-saving method. For example, Yi Qinghan's soul suppression pearl. If anyone thought that their soul was strong enough to attack Yi Qinghan's soul without defending, then they could only wait for Yi Qinghan to kill them. Once the news of Yi Qinghan's soul suppression pearl leaked out, who would attack Yi Qinghan's soul? After half an hour, even the artifact spirit was impatient and issued an ultimatum. Only then did Shui and Mecha each choose their favorite treasure. Their eyes were fixed on the large number of things that they had already chosen. There was a large pile of treasures piled up in the two rooms. They were all the treasures that the two of them were unwilling to give up. Whoosh! The two of them were transferred out of the room, their faces full of regret. There were so many treasures here that they were dazzled. The next room is the yin-yang door. Yang is life, and yin is death. Take care of yourselves. Don't be greedy. The artifact spirit reminded them, wanting them to take care of themselves and leave. Now that they had reached this point, it wasn't just Yi Qinghan who was unwilling to retreat. The other four were also unwilling to retreat. If they succeeded, they would obtain a superior divine artifact, or even a master divine artifact. There was no way the 9 Remoteness Lord would give up. Chapter 695. In the depths of the divine treasure, every step was a matter of life and death. One could die at any time. At this moment, there were more and more people in the divine treasure. The people from the voracious wolf dimension were also rushing to the center of the divine treasure. All roads led to the center. Many people had passed the test of the weapon spirit and entered the first stage. Everyone had different opportunities, but not many were like Yi Qinghan and the divine bird, who could obtain Master God weapons and Master God secret techniques in the first stage. More than 50 high-ranking God priests entered the voracious wolf dimension. Among the young experts, there were 4 who were comparable to Li Feng. As for those at the prefecture master level, there were countless of them. On the other side of the divine treasure, the battle was especially fierce. Perhaps because the voracious wolf dimension was much bigger than the mythological dimension, there were many experts there. They were ruthless and easily destroyed the souls of others. Among them, God Lord Voracious Wolf was the strongest. He was on par with 9 Remoteness Lord. At least a dozen high-ranking God priests obeyed him. No one dared to go against him. The 4 strongest of the young generation in the voracious wolf dimension had obtained many opportunities. To be able to cultivate to this level, which of them didn't have heaven-defying luck? The 4 of them obtained more than a dozen top-grade divine weapons between the 14th and 15th grade, as well as several secret techniques. They were rapidly approaching the center and passed 2 stages. Soon, they would meet up with Yi Qinghan and the rest. Among the 4 experts, Lone Wolf and Lord Black Moon were advancing together, while Dongfang Quan and Bai Ziluo were almost invincible. Even a single high-ranking God priest would have to consider whether to clash with the 2 of them. Under the lead of the divine bird, Yi Qinghan and the rest relied on luck and strength to pass 4 stages consecutively. As long as they passed the last stage, they would be able to enter the center. There was no danger there. There were also many treasures, top-grade divine crystals, and even chaos divinity sources. Yi Qinghan and the others were the fastest to reach the 5th level. Some of the higher god priests were stuck at the 4th level, while others were stuck at the periphery. The 9 Remoteness Lord was actually stuck at the 1st level. Perhaps it was because the weapon spirit was targeting him, or perhaps it was because he was too old. Even if he obtained the treasure, it would be impossible for him to become a master god. No matter how hard he tried, he could not make it to the 2nd level. High God Shenkuan had also made it to the 3rd level and was on his way to the 4th. Perhaps the unluckiest one was High God Worryless, who was still trapped in the Milky Way. He had to think of a way to leave the Milky Way, wasting a lot of time and effort. All the treasures in the periphery had been taken away before he could leave the Milky Way. Yi Qinghan, I want you to die without a burial place. High God Worryless drew his sword and charged into the depths. He killed anyone he saw and destroyed the corpses to vent the anger in his heart. By chance, He bumped into Yi Linshan of the inner sect and actually killed him without leaving a corpse behind. Another inner sect member had died. This scene was seen by frenzied God Saber King, but he did not dare to make a sound. He pretended not to see and chose another path to continue. Worryless sensed the aura of an expert and his figure flashed, blocking frenzied God Saber King's path. Frenzied God Saber King's heart was in a mess, but his expression did not change. He bowed slightly and said, "Greetings, Lord Elder." Frenzied God Saber King was a peripheral member of God's organization, but he did not dare to guarantee that High God Worryless would not kill him. He pretended to be calm and bowed. Then he asked curiously, "Lord Elder, why are you still here? The inner sect has already started to fight for it. I heard that many superior God artifacts have appeared, and even Master God artifacts have appeared." High God Worryless stared at frenzied God Saber King and asked hoarsely, "Why are you here instead of going? What did you see just now?" Frenzied God Saber King was shocked. He knew that High God Worryless was also afraid of Nine Remoteness Master and was afraid that the news of him killing the inner sect members would be exposed. He did not even trust the people of God's organization. "High God, I just got separated from my father and came here to look for him. I did not see anything. Now that the experts have already entered the depths, what else is there to see?" Frenzied God Saber King frowned and asked, "Your father is also nearby?" High God Worryless frowned and spread out his divine sense. However, the moment it touched the stone walls, it was blocked. He could only search through a few passages. He wanted to kill Frenzied God Saber King to silence him, but he was afraid of being discovered by the Alliance Master, so he could only give up. He might have entered the depths to look for treasures, or he might be nearby to look for me. "You go first, I will go and look for my father." Frenzied God Saber King wanted to leave this bomb. No one knew if he would go crazy and kill him. "Come with me. Your father's cultivation is so strong, he should be fine." High God Worryless said coldly. The fifth trial was the Nine Mysteries Gate, which was related to the Path of Inscription. It was broken through by Mecha and Li Feng. The five of them each obtained a High God artifact and a number of divine herbs. Yi Qinghan even obtained a primal chaos divinity source, which was slightly bigger than the previous one. It could be used as a new saber core. Welcome to the central area. This is the battlefield of the strong, the graveyard of the geniuses. You are the second batch of ants to appear here. This can be considered a punishment for the greedy. Shwa. A voice rang out, and the five of them were transported to a huge palace. It was 1,000 meters wide and brightly lit. Inscriptions were densely carved, and it was impossible to destroy them. 9 dragon pillars circled the sky, and the dragon heads converged at the dome. 18 dragon eyes lit up this space. The main hall was extremely spacious, and the ground was filled with corpses. The golden corpses had not been destroyed yet, and they contained the patterns of the Great Tao. It could be seen that their cultivation was at least at the level of Li Feng when they were alive. There were at least 100 corpses. Most of them were High God priests, and they had all died here. Their bodies had withered, and there were only dried corpses left. After 10 days, the divine treasures will be automatically sealed. Those who do not leave on their own will all gather here. You will kill each other here, and only 10 people can leave. The artifact spirit's voice became cold, cruel, and evil. It was as if a devil had revealed its true face. The five of them narrowed their eyes. Everyone had gathered here, and only 10 people could leave in the end. How many people would die? Yi Qinghan's heartbeat quickened. He was not worried about himself now, but about the people from the inner sect. When that time came, he would not be able to take care of them. Looking around the central area, a large number of weapons were scattered, and some were cut in half. The spatial rings were still intact, but they were all ownerless. The five of them quickly collected the spatial rings and gathered the weapons that were not destroyed. They were the first batch of existences to arrive here, and naturally, they had obtained great benefits. You are the first batch of people to enter the central area. Each of you can ask a question. It's considered preferential treatment, the artifact spirit reminded them calmly. Yi Qinghan and the others had a discussion. They wanted the 5 of them to ask all the questions they had to ask. It would be best if they could leave before the final battle. Otherwise, when the high god priests gathered, the medium god priests would definitely be the first batch to fall. Even Yi Qinghan, Li Feng, and the others had supreme treasures to protect them. Chapter 696. 5 questions, 1 for each person. After some discussion, Yi Qinghan was the first to ask. My lord, may I ask if this central area can control the entire divine treasure? Yi Qinghan scanned the surroundings. Other than a huge dragon throne and 9 pillars with 9 dragons on them, there was nothing special. His goal was to control the entire divine treasure. At the very least, he had to inform some people in advance to leave the divine treasure. Yes, when your cultivation reaches the level of Master God, you can refine the 9 dragon divine pillars and control the divine treasure through the 9 dragons. The weapon spirit replied in a mocking and sarcastic tone. Master God, the 5 people immediately gave up. It was still far from the level of Master God. My lord, may I ask if we can leave this place through other means? Do we have to fight with the superior god priests before we can leave? Mecha was not confident and only wanted to leave as soon as possible. Once there were more people, Yi Qinghan and Li Feng would definitely choose stronger masters to cooperate with. She had no chance. At every stage I will ask you if you choose to leave. When I ask, it is the door of life and death. If you choose to retreat, it is the door of life. If you choose to enter, it is the door of death. If you want to leave alive, you have to break the shackles and turn decay into vitality. Only then can you leave. This is the rule and no one can change it, the weapon spirit replied indifferently. Li Feng was silent for a moment and then asked, My lord, is this test one of the tests for the creator of the divine treasure or a game? Or is it a punishment for those who enter the divine treasure? Everyone has one. If you want to become a chief god or achieve something even greater, you must stand out from the crowd. In the end, I will choose one of you to become the chief god's successor. 10 of you will leave this place alive, but the rest will all die here, either by killing each other or by dying of despair. The weapon spirit did not hide anything. The master god played the mortal world and the superior gods were just playthings in his eyes. This kind of test is too unfair for us medium god priests. Cher questioned. There is no fairness in the world. When you entered here and chose divine treasures at will, did you ask me if it was fair? If you want fairness, there are 2 kinds of fairness. The first kind is the fairness that I give you, which is fair to me. The other kind is the fairness that comes from punching, the artifact spirit replied disdainfully. As for the last question, Xian Yanxue pondered for a long time, but she didn't know what to ask. In the end, the 5 of them discussed again, hoping to ask something useful. At the very least, they wanted to gain some benefits so that they could have an advantage in the later battles. Where is the treasure of the central region? Xian Yanxue asked. Behind the stone wall, under the stone wall, there are both, but you will not be able to obtain them. The inscriptions on the stone walls had been painstakingly crafted by the overgod in the past. Without the cultivation of an overgod, it was impossible to break through the inscriptions. After asking all 5 questions, the artifact spirit fell silent. But how could the divine bird let him leave? It opened its mouth and said, You're discriminating against this divine bird again. You should also be an artifact spirit, shouldn't you prefer the equality of all things? Don't you think you've gone too far by not treating the divine spirit-devouring parrot as an intelligent creature? Although the artifact spirit didn't have any emotions, it was rather speechless after being questioned by the divine bird. It didn't want to argue with it, so it said, Ask away. I won't ask any more. I'm too sad. My young and pure soul is filled with helplessness and fear towards the world. The divine bird said, pretending to be wronged. The artifact spirit was speechless, not knowing how to respond. Do you feel very sorry? Do you feel guilty for discriminating against a divine bird that respects and worships you? The divine bird stood on Yi Qinghan's shoulder and asked repeatedly. The artifact spirit's voice was somewhat emotional. It asked, You respect and worship me? Have you seen me before? Although we've never met, that doesn't stop me from respecting and worshipping you. You've lived here alone for millions of years, but you don't feel lonely at all. You don't even complain. This state of mind is the greatest existence I've ever seen. You're much stronger than those so-called high gods. I think there are probably many so-called main gods who are inferior to you. Don't you deserve the respect and worship of the world? The divine bird praised solemnly. Yi Qinghan allowed the divine bird to sway him. This artifact spirit didn't have much intelligence, so perhaps he could sway it to change some of the rules. The artifact spirit was a little embarrassed by the divine bird's praises. It had always treated the divine bird as Yi Qinghan's accessory, so it only considered Yi Qinghan for treasures and benefits, not the divine bird. Now that the divine bird said this, it instantly felt sorry for it. All right, I'm very sorry that my actions have hurt you. I can fulfill a small wish of yours, but the prerequisite is that you can't change the big principles. For example, I can send you all away, or give you a few main god weapons, the artifact spirit said helplessly. You're really too great. You're even greater than the great creator. You're like a ray of sunshine in my heart, dispelling the haze in my heart and allowing me to see the direction. The divine bird was a complete mess. It couldn't wait to kneel down and lick the artifact spirit's boots. It was always trying to find a loophole to leave this place in advance. Even if the artifact spirit didn't agree to it, it still had feelings for it. The artifact spirit knew that the divine bird was flattering it, but it was indeed pleasing to the ears. It didn't refute it, but instead, it was a little complacent. Great artifact spirit, you're the most powerful and greatest artifact spirit I've ever seen. Can you let this divine bird temporarily control the divine treasure and inform some of my family members to leave this place? They're still just children. They're young, talented, and sensible. They respect and worship you. You don't want them to die tragically at the hands of the high gods, right? May the great artifact spirit lead them to the source of all evil greed. The divine bird praised seriously. Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank. He didn't expect the divine bird to want the people of the insane sect to leave at this time. He couldn't help but feel nervous. He hoped that the artifact spirit could really fulfill the divine bird's wish. The artifact spirit hesitated. Those people were still outside and hadn't reached a place where they would die. It was fine for the artifact spirit to inform some of them to leave. After all, it was just a medium gods. It wasn't a matter of principle. All right, this is the last request. The artifact spirit agreed. Yi Qinghan was overjoyed. He couldn't wait to hug the divine bird and give it a kiss. The artifact spirit allowed the divine bird to use it to instantly take control of the divine treasury. The entire divine treasury was like a huge mechanism that everyone could see clearly. The divine bird saw that there were more than 100 high-level god priests in the divine treasury. As for those at the Manor Master level, there were at least 1,000 of them, and no less than 3,000 young elite geniuses. It couldn't help but be shocked. If you can't persuade them in half an hour, then don't blame me, the artifact spirit said calmly. When the divine bird heard this, it immediately found all the masters of the inner sect through the artifact spirit. It went straight to the point. Everyone from the inner sect of the insane sect, leave the divine treasure immediately. There must be no mistakes. It was the first time the divine bird was so serious. Its voice reached the ears of the inner sect and the foreign aide. Emperor Yi and the others were stunned. It was as if the voice had appeared out of thin air. The divine bird's voice was very distinguishable. Chapter 697. Emperor Yi was very familiar with the divine bird. It had never spoken in such a serious manner before. Something big must have happened for it to speak in such a serious manner. Worried about Yi Qinghan, he asked, "Where's Master? How did you contact us?" "Don't ask so many questions. Master is beside me. With me around, nothing will happen to him. However, if you don't leave now, he won't be able to leave this treasury. As for what you ask, I'll explain when we get out. Just leave now," the divine bird said anxiously. When the people from the inner sect and the foreign aide heard this, they left the treasury without hesitation. After the roll call, it was discovered that only Yi Linchen was unlucky enough to meet God Wu Yu. Coincidentally, The divine bird's eyes swept across frenzied God Blade King and reminded him. Frenzied God Blade King knew that he could leave God Wu Yu as long as he chose to leave, so he immediately left and returned to the outside world. Frenzied God Blade King looked at the people from Frenzied Sect and thought for a moment. Then he secretly transmitted a message to Emperor Yi about the cause of Yi Linshan's death. The divine bird still had half the time given by the weapon spirit. How could it waste time? It quickly understood the entire treasury. With its insane memory, it memorized everything about the gate of life and death. It found 9 Remoteness Master and gave him the map. Then, it asked him to enter the center of the treasury immediately. It told 9 Remoteness Master that there were Master God weapons and Master God's secret technique in the depths of the treasury and asked him to come quickly. It did not tell him the truth as it was afraid that 9 Remoteness Master would leave the treasury. Many superior God priests were already approaching the central area. The divine bird immediately exited the state of controlling the divine treasures and said to Yi Qinghan, "Master, there are superior God priests approaching here. Let's launch a lightning-fast attack. As long as they enter this place, we can immediately kill them if they can't team up. Waiting for them to come was the best way. Killing some superior God priests in advance will increase our chances of survival." Li Feng nodded and agreed with the divine bird. "We still have a chance. I've lured the old monster of the evil branch and the 9 Remoteness Master into this place. With them around, we can ambush them and wait for them to show up." Hee hee. The divine bird let out a sinister laugh that sent chills down everyone's spine. The 5 of them didn't say much as they scattered behind the 9 dragon pillars. Yi Qinghan gripped frenzy in his left hand and clenched his right. The god's severing gauntlet was ready to erupt with its glory at any moment. Li Feng was still wielding a sword and carrying a divine sword on his back. Both were 5th-grade top-tier high-tier divine artifacts. Once the attack was launched, it would be as swift as lightning. If the superior god priest was careless, he would die in his hands. The precondition was that the superior god priest did not allow the superior god priest to recover. Otherwise, these 5 people would not be a match for him. At this moment, even the golden crow, the god-slaying eagle, and the multicolored snake had become an effective force in the ambush. The start-whining vine had evolved into a green vine that twined around the 9 dragon pillars. It was as if it was originally a creature of this place and could entangle the superior god priest's hands and legs at any time. It didn't need to buy much time. In less than half an hour, the second group of experts had barged into the central area. They were none other than Dongfang Quan and Bai Ziluo from the Ravenous Wolf dimension. The 2 of them looked down on everyone with disdain. As soon as they stepped into the central area, they released their auras and looked around vigilantly. When they saw the start-whining vine, they frowned but did not dare to attack recklessly. "What is this? Why is it still alive?" Bai Ziluo and Dongfang Quan's attention was attracted by the start-whining vine. They did not notice that there was an expert clinging to the dragon pillars. The start-whining vine was very rare. It might not even appear in one dimension. This start-whining vine was brought out from the 9 remoteness by Yi Qinghan. It was normal for the 2 of them not to recognize it. "I've never seen it before. It's a miracle that this thing can survive here for so long." Dongfang Quan did not expect anyone to arrive here before them. The 2 of them approached the start-whining vine to study it. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The start-whining vine suddenly erupted. Hundreds of thousands of vines split into more than a dozen directions and wrapped around the 2 experts' legs, hands, waist, and neck. The start-whining vines were as fast as lightning, catching them off guard. Whoosh whoosh. The 2 of them pulled out their swords and broke some of the vines in front of them. Just as they were about to retreat, they were entangled by the start-whining vine. Their speed instantly slowed down by a lot. Even if it was just a breath's time, it was extremely precious to Yi Qinghan and Li Feng. Li Feng's sword pierced through the void. The sword gleam was so dazzling that the 2 of them could not open their eyes. His sword was pointed at one of their throats. Before the sword arrived, the sword aura attacked Bai Ziluo's throat. He turned around and stomped on the pillar. He became one with his sword and charged at Bai Ziluo. Yi Qinghan was like a goshawk pouncing on a rabbit. The pillar under his feet made a sound. He pulled back his iron fist and punched out. He charged at Dong Fangquan like a cannonball. Dong Fangquan was shocked. He could not be bothered to shatter the start-whining vine. Instead, he raised his sword and stabbed at Yi Qinghan's iron fist. He wanted to force Yi Qinghan to retreat. However, Yi Qinghan was wearing the god-severing gloves. He was unstoppable. He punched directly at the sword. He had no interest in dodging. Boom! The fist and sword collided. The terrifying aftershock shattered the vines. Dong Fangquan was caught off guard and was sent flying. Even his sword was knocked out of his hand. After Yi Qinghan flew back 3 meters, he stomped on the ground. His body twisted, and the momentum of his flight changed instantly. He charged at Dong Fangquan again. He exerted strength at his waist and flipped his iron fist. The god-severing gloves emitted a divine glow that shot into the sky. Boom! His fist was covered in flames as it collided with Dong Fangquan's chest. Bang! Yi Qinghan's inch strike, coupled with his own strength and the power of the gloves, hit Dong Fangquan so hard that he coughed up blood. He slammed into the stone wall. The inscriptions were activated, and a terrifying force erupted, sending Dong Fangquan flying. 5 Elements Dragon Fist. Yi Qinghan's veins bulged. He gathered all his strength in his right fist. Ripples appeared in the stable space inside. The friction between his fist and the space created even more terrifying flames as he charged at Dong Fangquan again. Dong Fangquan was completely unable to resist. He was dizzy and could only watch as Yi Qinghan's iron fist charged at him. He knew that this fist could beat him to death, but he was powerless to resist. Bang! Dong Fangquan's eyeballs almost popped out of their sockets. His internal organs were shattered, and all of them spurted out. If not for the divine protection garment protecting his chest, this fist would have penetrated his body. However, this fist had already shattered all of Dong Fangquan's internal organs and flesh. His flesh and blood were reorganized, and his body was completely dead. Boom! Yi Qinghan raised his leg and kicked at Dong Fangquan's head. His head exploded from the kick. The divinity crashed out of his mind and was caught in Yi Qinghan's palm. 2 punches and 1 kick were as smooth as flowing water. A powerful expert had died. On the other side, Li Feng's sword qi pierced through Bai Ziluo's throat. The sword qi destroyed most of his vitality. Bai Ziluo struggled on the verge of death. Just as he was about to raise his sword and stab at Li Feng, Xia Nixu's sword came from behind. Bai Ziluo blocked Li Feng's sword, but he didn't have the strength to defend against Xia Nixu. He was pierced by Xia Nixu's sword. Even the mid-god armor was torn apart. Chapter 698. Li Feng and Xian Yanxue killed the white chess piece, then turned to look at Yi Qinghan. Out of the corner of their eyes, they saw Yi Qinghan kill Dong Fangquan in the same manner. It was completely a close combat technique. Killing someone was so easy. Yi Qinghan pulled back his fist and tossed the corpse to the star-twisting vine. He said calmly, "Continue. There aren't many who can enter this place. After a few days of killing, there shouldn't be many left." The star-twisting vine quickly sucked the flesh out of the 2 corpses and hid the skeletons behind the dragon pillar, waiting for the next group of experts to enter. At this moment, those who could enter the central area were definitely people with exceptional luck. However, once they arrived here, they would be plagued by bad luck. This was because there were a few monsters waiting for them. In the ravenous wolf plain, a powerful superior god priest killed a few youths with a single palm strike and stole their opportunities. When faced with whether or not to enter the central area, he chose to enter without hesitation. As soon as he entered the central area, he smelled the stench of blood. He unsheathed his sword and attacked the star-twisting vine. Thousands of vines were pulverized, and the star-twisting vine shrank back in pain. The superior god priest was actually trying to kill the star-twisting vine's main body. It was so frightened that the star-twisting vine's tens of thousands of vines danced about, protecting its main body. It constantly circled around the dragon pillar, trying to lure the superior god priest to Yi Qinghan. The superior god priest's eyes were like torches. Sword qi surrounded his body, forming an instinctive defense. At this moment, Li Feng and Xian Yanxue attacked from behind and from the right at the same time. Their sword chi was like rainbows, capable of injuring the superior god priest. The superior god priest was horrified. He roared, "Junior, you're courting death." Bush, 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 bush. The golden crow on Yi Qinghan's shoulder suddenly spat out a mouthful of fire, engulfing the superior god priest. Although the fire was blocked by the superior god priest's divine power, it also blocked his vision. Boom! Yi Qinghan transformed into a goshawk pouncing on a rabbit. He charged towards his opponent with the force of a thunderbolt, blasting away the flames with his fist and aiming for the high deity's face. Facing enemies from three sides, the superior god was shocked. He did not expect the three young people to have the power to kill a high god. At this moment, the sword in his hand could only block Li Feng and Xian Yanxue, but he could not dodge Yi Qinghan's attack. He could only raise his body and use his left shoulder to block Yi Qinghan's iron fist. He gathered all his divine power in his left shoulder. Boom! Yi Qinghan's fist exploded with millions of kilograms of godly strength and struck the left shoulder of the high god. The high god's godly strength exploded, and the shoulder moved backwards. Then, it suddenly rushed towards Yi Qinghan, and the terrifying aftershock sent the two of them flying. The high deity did not expect Yi Qinghan's fist to ignore his defense and directly hit his body with his godly strength. Suddenly, the high deity lost control of the left side of his body. His flesh and blood cells were all scattered, and even his bones were shattered. His body involuntarily flew backwards. Yi Qinghan did not have it easy either. The high deity had used almost all of his godly strength to defend his left shoulder, and the explosive power was equivalent to a peak high deity's attack. He was sent flying, somersaulting more than 10 times in the hall, and stepped on the stone wall with one foot. His body twisted, and he rushed out like a sword. Dragon form. 5 elements dragon fist. Roar. Yi Qinghan transformed into a heavenly dragon and rushed in front of the high deity in the blink of an eye. His huge dragon claws clenched, and his dragon tail swayed. His dragon body exploded with the power to move mountains and fill seas. The superior god was terrified. He sent Xian Yanxue and Li Feng flying with 2 consecutive strikes, and then he turned around to attack Yi Qinghan's iron fist. Boom! The iron fist collided with the divine sword, and there was a deafening sound. The two of them were sent flying again. The high deity endured the terrifying recoil, and he spat out a mouthful of blood essence. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Although the strike was hurried, it contained 40% of the high deity's strength. Yet, it failed to block Yi Qinghan's attack, and it was heavily injured. Yi Qinghan's body rolled more than 10 times on the ground before coming to a stop. However, with the god-severing glove blocking the recoil, he was not injured. Yi Qinghan leaped up and pounced on the superior god again. Roared out whoosh whoosh whoosh. Li Feng pulled out 2 divine swords, and the sound of the swords was deafening. They turned into 2 sword dragons and charged at the superior god. The superior god had no choice but to defend himself. Evil Ninth Heaven. Xian Yanshue's sword pierced through the void and went straight for the origin. With the two of them pinning down the superior god had no time to deal with Yi Qinghan. He used his sword to block the attacks of the two. When the two of them were sent flying, his divine power and aura were stagnant, and he could not unleash any powerful combat strength in a short period of time. At this moment, Yi Qinghan was already close to his body. Bang! Yi Qinghan punched out and slammed into the superior god's face. The superior god's face contorted, and his body toppled to the left. Boom! Yi Qinghan's fist turned into an elbow strike, and his elbow hit the superior god's neck. Bang! The superior god was hit twice in a row, and his head slammed into the stone floor. He was rebounded by the inscriptions, and he immediately became dizzy and lost control of his body. Yi Qinghan seized the opportunity and kicked the superior god in the chest, sending his body flying. Peeved, the superior god screamed in pain, and his body twitched and curled up. His face contorted as he flew backward. Catch! Xian Yanxue stepped on the wall and flew up. She kicked the superior god's waist, and with a crack, the superior god's waist broke several times. His body flew toward Li Feng. Li Feng was even more brutal. He put away the sword in his right hand and punched the superior god's head. The superior god's body spun more than 10 times in the air and smashed toward Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan flew into the air, his knees hitting the superior god's chest, and his elbows smashing down. Boom! Yi Qinghan smashed the high-level god's powerful body until it was deformed. His neck was broken, and his head drooped down. His eyes protruded, and he couldn't even roar in anger. His throat was blocked. Too violent. Yi Qinghan directly engaged the superior god in close combat, rendering his divine power and profound mysteries useless. The superior god's body was beaten to death by the three of them. The superior god's body flew backward, crashing into the middle of the three. Li Feng and Xian Yanxue cut the superior god's body into pieces. Yi Qinghan summoned Berserk, and with a sweep of his blade, the superior god's body was cleaved from his head to his legs. The superior god's divinity was hacked out by Berserk, but it did not break. Berserk's level was too low. Yi Qinghan reached out and grabbed the superior god's divinity. No. This old man is willing to be your slave. The superior god was terrified. He did not dare to resist and immediately chose to submit. No need. I only want your divinity. Yi Qinghan grabbed the superior god's divinity, wanting to suppress the soul within. When the superior god heard that Yi Qinghan was unwilling to spare him, he suddenly launched a soul attack toward Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness. Unfortunately, he was disappointed. This soul attack did not even make Yi Qinghan budge. You're disappointed? Yi Qinghan was disdainful. He used the soul suppression pearl to counterattack the soul within the superior god's divinity. A large amount of destructive energy and dragon soul energy suppressed the superior god's soul. A high god had fallen to the hands of three youths. Chapter 699. The central area was no longer divided into good and bad people, only the successful and the dead. Yi Qinghan and the others had turned the central area into the tomb of the strong, the home of the elites, forever slumbering here. More and more corpses were piling up. Most of the strong moved alone, so how could they withstand the joint attack of 5 people? After 3 days of killing, they had killed 4 high gods, more than 30 prefecture masters, and more than 10 young elite geniuses. As for the universe rings, there were more than 60 of them. Whether it was the ravenous wolf plane or the mythological plane, as long as they were not friends, they were enemies. The divine sparks were distributed, 1 for each person. Mecha's cultivation was the lowest, so she did not have much to contribute. She only got 7 or 8 prefecture master level divine sparks, but she was already very satisfied. Yi Qinghan got a wood divine spark, but it was of no use to him, so he could only leave it for the people of the inner sect. Apart from the 4 high gods' rings, which were divided among Yi Qinghan, Li Feng, Sinian Shui, and Shui, the other 50 or so rings were divided equally. The corpses had been eaten by the start-whining vine, so it could not eat anymore. The energy contained in the high gods' bodies was enough for it to eat a full meal, and it would not need to eat for a long time. It had forcibly gone from a low god to a medium god, and it had become even more powerful. Everyone hid again, preparing to attack the next batch of strong people. As time passed, more and more people entered the central area, and the frequency became faster and faster. Just as the 3rd day was about to end, another 2 people were teleported in at the same time. The 5 people's pupils shrank, because the 2 people who came in were both high gods. Even if the 5 of them joined forces, they could not kill them. The 2 of them joined forces and soon found Yi Qinghan and the others. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Yi Qinghan and the others retreated to the center of the hall and looked at the 2 people together. They found that the 2 people were very unfamiliar, and they were obviously from the ravenous wolf plane. I did not expect only the 5 of you to enter the central area. Take out all the treasures and I will spare your lives. A white-haired old man with eagle-like eyes could steal one's soul, and one look was enough to make one shudder. What's the point of talking nonsense with a bunch of ants? Just kill them and take them. The other person's voice was hoarse, as if someone was squeezing his throat. His voice was very ear-piercing and unbearable. If anyone from the ravenous wolf plane were here, they would definitely recognize these two higher god priests as the famous hawkwolf demons. They were cruel and merciless to the extreme. Almost all those who offended them would be slaughtered. Many innocent people were implicated. Their style made the strongest expert in the greedy wolf plane, greedy wolf exalted, feel helpless and unwilling to offend them. The first to speak was called Chen-ing, and the second was called Fierce Tiger. His personality was like a fierce tiger, and he was extremely greedy. The corners of Yi Qinghan's and the others' mouths twitched as they glared coldly. They had originally wanted to cooperate with them, but it looked like there was no need for that. Chen-ing and Fierce Tiger closed in on the five of them. Yi Qinghan and company had no choice but to retreat. There was nowhere to retreat, and there was only so much space. Chen-ing and Fierce Tiger seemed to be deliberately teasing the five of them, wanting them to beg for mercy in despair. Especially when they saw Shui-er and Mecha licking their lips with their bright red tongues, the greed in their eyes was self-evident. The four of you, kill the one on the left. Leave the one on the right to me. Come and help me immediately after you're done. Yi Qinghan secretly transmitted his voice and said in a low voice. How long can we last? Li Feng frowned. Even he couldn't take on a high god by himself. I don't know. We'll only know after we fight. We can't delay any longer. If another high god comes, we'll definitely die. Yi Qinghan and the other four separated to the sides. Fierce Tiger grinned evilly and closed in on Yi Qinghan. After being forced into a corner, Yi Qinghan's eyes emitted a cold light. He stepped on the corner of the wall, turned into an azure dragon and punched out. 5 elements dragon fist, 5 dragons in one. 5 heavenly dragons appeared behind Yi Qinghan's back. With lightning speed, they followed Yi Qinghan and pounced on Fierce Tiger. With a roar, the 5 dragons merged into one and turned into a huge fist, ruthlessly rushing towards Fierce Tiger. Fierce Tiger smiled disdainfully and raised his big hand. His seemingly light palm smashed towards Yi Qinghan with the power to destroy heaven and earth, wanting to suppress him. At this moment, Li Feng and the other 3 also made their move. They attacked from 4 different directions, ruthlessly and without mercy. Boom! Yi Qinghan's fist landed on Fierce Tiger's palm. Fierce Tiger also had a tyrannical physical body. When the fist and palm collided, the rumbling sound was endless, and the aftershock spread out in all directions. Thud, 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 that both of them retreated more than 10 steps. Fierce Tiger's eyes were filled with surprise. He felt a burning pain in his palm, as if he was being burned by fire. Moreover, the fire was constantly drilling into his body, burning his limbs and bones. Even his soul was experiencing a heart-wrenching pain. Fierce Tiger frowned. He clenched his bark-like hand, and his divine power surged, forcing the fire element out of his body. I haven't felt pain for a long time. Kid, you actually made me feel pain for a long time. I have decided to give you a death sentence, and you will die in pain. Fierce Tiger stared at Yi Qinghan. His ear-piercing voice seemed to tear apart the eardrums. Yi Qinghan sneered. His left hand clasped the 10 directions seal in the palm of his hand, and his right fist clenched. Blue veins popped out all over his body, and his dragon blood boiled as he activated the god's severing glove. From now on, not only will you feel pain, I will also let you experience the taste of death. Yi Qinghan roared. He twisted his waist, and all the divine power in his body gathered in his right fist. With a kick, the inscription on the stone slab shone brightly, and he shot out like a cannonball. What? The 13th grade fire source was vast and mighty, forming a giant dragon. A giant dragon also rushed out from behind him, and with a loud roar, its momentum was terrifying. Fierce Tiger disdainfully snorted. He clenched his fists, and the path of his divine power suddenly twisted. His divine power poured out, and it was strengthened by dozens of times. The peak power smashed into Yi Qinghan's iron fist. Boom! A vast power was enough to destroy heaven and earth. It pierced through time and space, and directly hit Yi Qinghan's fist. Kacha. The ear-piercing sound of broken bones echoed in the center. Yi Qinghan lost control of his body, but the god's severing glove suddenly shone brightly and attacked on its own. It actually blasted out all the power that it had absorbed from the primal chaos source, and directly sent Fierce Tiger flying 1,000 meters, crashing into the stone wall. Bang! Puff! Fierce Tiger screamed, and spat out a mouthful of essence blood. His body almost broke the inscription on the stone wall. His whole body's flesh and blood were all scattered, and the order of his flesh and blood was disrupted. His head hit the wall, and then hit the stone slab. He almost fainted on the spot. Yi Qinghan was not having it easy. He was smashed into the wall by the rebounding force, and almost suffered a considerable amount of force. He was dizzy, and blood was flowing out of his 7 orifices. He tried to get up several times, but he was stunned. His eyes were full of golden blood, and his right hand was trembling. Even his body could not support it, and his soul could not even feel his body. With great difficulty he half knelt on the ground. He looked up at Fierce Tiger, and saw that his right arm was only left with golden battle bones. His flesh and blood were scattered on the ground, and the god's protective garment on his body was shattered. Chapter 700. Yi Qinghan glared at Fierce Tiger. Blood dripped from his eyes, blurring his vision. Fierce Tiger was even more miserable. The order of his flesh and blood had changed. No matter how strong his soul was, he could not control his body. If he wanted to attack again, he would have to heal his body first. Yi Qinghan could not move. He was the same. However, Yi Qinghan had a spirit pet, a spirit plant like the star twining vine. Go! Kill him! Screech! The god-slaying eagle soared into the sky. It opened its sharp claws and tore at the flesh of the high god. It threw Fierce Tiger away. The little golden crow spat out a mouthful of fire and drowned him. Fierce Tiger let out a mournful roar. Even a high god could not withstand the 13th grade fire source. The heart-wrenching pain made him taste the taste of death. The star-twining vines became sharp knives, constantly stabbing into his body. The flames even burned the vines. However, he could not care less at this time. The more Fierce Tiger's vitality was consumed, the harder it would be for him to heal his body. The divine bird roared, "Tear him apart! Devour his flesh and blood!" Whoosh whoosh whoosh! The rainbow snake turned into a heavenly dragon. It directly tore off Fierce Tiger's left arm and swallowed it into its stomach. The fire was extinguished. Besides half of Fierce Tiger's flesh and blood, he was only left with skin and bones. He emitted a foul smell. At this moment he was in despair. He let out a mournful roar, wanting to use his soul to kill these divine beasts. Although these powerful mythological beasts were powerful, their souls were still far inferior compared to the superior god priests. Their bodies flew backward, roaring and wailing. Only the mythological bird was fine. Its soul was so powerful that it couldn't be harmed, but it didn't have any offensive power. Fuck you! Look at this divine bird's roasted pig head. What? Another mouthful of fire, which was not even a 12th grade fire source, drowned Fierce Tiger's body again. Fierce Tiger's body trembled and the fire was extinguished. Only his skeleton was left. He could still stand up, let out a sinister laugh, and pounced at Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan held the 10 directions seal tightly. His eyes were like lightning. All the divine power in his body was mobilized to activate the 10 directions seal. 10 directions returned to 1, suppress him. The 10 directions seal continued to grow in size as it charged towards Fierce Tiger. Fierce Tiger was shocked and retreated continuously. However, the speed of the 10 directions seal was too fast and it suppressed him directly. Cracked. The 10 directions seal had actually crushed the bones of a superior god. Fierce Tiger didn't even have time to scream before he was suppressed. His bones were crushed into powder, and his godhead was also suppressed under the 10 directions seal. No matter how hard he struggled, he couldn't escape from the 10 directions seal's shackles. No. This is impossible. Fierce Tiger's soul was still struggling. He couldn't believe that he had lost to a little guy. Fierce Tiger's cultivation was not weak. At the very least, Among the superior gods, he could be ranked in the middle. However, he did not expect that Yi Qinghan's god-severing gloves would take the initiative to attack him and severely injure him. He also did not expect that the 10 Directions seal could almost be classified as a master god weapon. Caught off guard, a dignified high-level god priest was suppressed by a mid-level god priest. He could not help but say that he was unlucky. Boom! Yi Qinghan pulled out the spear on his back. It was also a high-level god weapon. He directly hit the stone floor and stood up with the help of the spear. He walked to the side of the 10 Directions seal and reached out to take it. He then pressed the godhead on the stone floor with the spear. A large amount of destructive power surged out. The soul-suppressing orb suppressed the superior god priest's godhead with the power to destroy souls. Yi Qinghan obtained another superior godhead, the strength godhead. This godhead might be useful to Yi Qinghan in the later stages. He did not hesitate to put it away. On the other side, Chen Ying did not expect that fierce tiger would be defeated so xickly by a little guy. He was also flustered by the attacks of 4 people. The attack power of the 2 girls might be negligible, but the strength of Li Feng and Xian Yanxue made him extremely vigilant. After 3 days of attacks, Xian Yanxue and Li Feng cooperated seamlessly. Under their cooperation, they actually suppressed Chen Ying. Xue's path of snow was suppressed here, but she could still freeze souls and suppress Chen Ying's blood. Chen Ying's godhead was almost frozen, and his combat power decreased by more than 20%. Mecha was purely picking up scraps. As long as Chen Ying was forced to the point where he had no chance to resist, she would hold her sword and slash from behind. Anyway, she had a 5th-tier divine protective garment on her, which could block 30% to 50% of Chen Ying's full-strength attack. Bang! Xian Yanxue stabbed Chen Ying's lower abdomen. How could Chen Ying not defend himself? However, Li Feng's 2 swords stabbed his chest and head at the same time. Although they were blocked by the divine power barrier, they still created a lot of impact. Li Feng saw that his sword attack was blocked, so he raised his leg and kicked Chen Ying's temple. Boom! Chen Ying was sent crashing into a dragon pillar at the side by this kick. The thick dragon pillar swayed for a moment, and his brain almost burst out from the impact. At that moment, the attacks of the 4 people bombarded Chen Ying's body like raindrops, and he was flustered. After a while, he lost his mind and could only rely on the dragon pillar to take the hits. At that moment, Yi Qinghan suddenly jumped up and used his knee to hit Chen Ying's head from the left. Bang! Chen Ying's body was like a kite with a broken string. He was sent flying dozens of meters and hit the stone wall on the side. Puchi! Li Feng and Xian Yanxue seized the opportunity and stabbed 3 swords into Chen Ying's throat, lower abdomen, and head at the same time. The defensive barrier was broken by Yi Qinghan's knee. The 3 swords were unstoppable and directly wiped out all of Chen Ying's vitality. The 5 of them worked together to suppress Chen Ying's soul and obtained another divine spark. Puff, puff, puff. The 5 of them were breathing heavily. Mecha and Xue's peaks heaved up and down, and their bodies were covered in blood. The 5 of them were seriously injured, especially Yi Qinghan. He was so tired that he could not stand up. He was completely relying on his spear to stabilize himself. Yi Qinghan and the others looked at each other. They did not feel the slightest joy of victory. At this time, any expert could kill the 5 of them. Swallow the divine pills. Heal your injuries at all costs. Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. At this time, the divine pills that Yi Qinghan and the others had obtained earlier played a crucial role. Yi Qinghan took out 3 divine pills. The Heaven Reversal Pill was a divine treasure that could revive the dead. He directly threw one to Xue and Xian Yanxue and swallowed one himself. However, before he could heal his injuries, the central area shone brightly. More than 20 experts appeared at the same time. There were no less than 7 or 8 superior god priests from the Greedy Wolf plane and 5 or 6 superior god priests from the Mythology plane. In addition, there were some top young talents and prefecture masters. As soon as they appeared, they drew their swords and faced each other. Yi Qinghan and the others' breathing stagnated. They hurriedly huddled together with their backs to the stone pillars, afraid that they would be attacked by the crowd. Chapter 701. The two corpses were still lying on the side. The experts of the ravenous wolf plane recognized Chen Ying and Fierce Tiger and looked at Yi Qinghan and the others in surprise. 5 young men and 2 young women had actually killed the 2 most troublesome superior god priests of the ravenous wolf plane. The exalted ravenous wolf narrowed his eyes and stared at Yi Qinghan and the others. He realized that the strongest were Li Feng, Yi Qinghan, and Xianyanxue. As for Xue, her great path of snow was directly suppressed here and did not have much combat power. Mecha was also a grave robber and did not have the ability to kill a superior god priest. In other words, the 3 young men had killed 2 superior god priests. The people from the mythology plane who came with them were Xianyanshue's ancestor, the evil dominator, Shangqing High God, Yuqing High God, Qianquan High God, and 3 unfamiliar faces. As for the younger generation, the wind and cloud 3 heavens were all here. As for the others, most of them had the combat power of a prefecture master. However, there was one that Yi Qinghan knew he could rope in as a teammate. The person with abnormal pupils. She had also come in. The 9 remoteness lord seemed to be targeted by the weapon spirit. Even though he had a map, he was still stuck outside and could not enter at all. Perhaps his combat power was too strong and he could control the entire situation by himself. In the end, all the paths were blocked and he was forced out of the tomb of the gods. Yi Qinghan summoned the person with abnormal pupils. He took out a divine sword from his back and handed it to her. He secretly transmitted his voice, "Cooperate this time, and this superior god weapon is yours." The person with abnormal pupils' eyes flashed. She reached out and grabbed the divine sword. She gently moved the scabbard and the sword light tore through the void. The sword's whistling sound startled everyone. So far, the best godly weapon that had appeared was the god-breaking fist glove, and the rest were high-level godly weapons. Most of the high-level godly weapons were in the hands of Yi Qinghan and the others, so very few people had obtained high-level godly weapons. Now that a high-level godly weapon had suddenly appeared, even someone like Greedy Wolf Exalted was tempted. How can I miss out on such a good thing? The man with other pupils stared at Yi Qinghan, but Yi Qinghan did not dare to look into the man's eyes. Those eyes were too frightening. Help us defend. We need to recover from our injuries. Yi Qinghan had no choice but to trust her. He could only trust her now. Of course, there was still the evil dominator, but it was difficult for him to fight alone. With the protection of 2 strong cultivators, he could at least buy them some time. Coincidentally, the evil dominator walked over and stood in front of the 5 of them. Yi Qinghan and the others quickly sat cross-legged on the ground and swallowed the heaven reversal pills. The divine pills melted as soon as they entered their mouths. Their divine powers flowed through their limbs and bones, quickly healing their injured bodies. No matter how good the elixir was, it would still take time to heal his injured body. He didn't need too much time, at least an hour. But in the face of so many strong cultivators, who would give them an hour? Just as the weapon spirit did not say that this place was a land of death, the divine bird rushed out and said with a sneer, "Great gods, this divine bird has found the last treasure location in the central area. There are master god weapons and secret techniques inside. Does anyone want to know where the treasure location is?" The greedy wolf Exalted looked to be in his 30s, not even 40 yet. He was very dignified. One look and you could tell that he was a person who had been in a high position for a long time. He had a square face and was imposing without being angry. When he heard the divine bird's words, he immediately said in a low voice, "Tell me where the treasure location is, and I can grant you a lifetime of prosperity." Everyone stared at the divine bird. In this central area, other than a few dragon pillars and dragon throne, where else could there be a treasure location? There's no free lunch in this world. If you want to get benefits, you have to pay something. Even if it's just a little effort, you still have to pay. The divine bird sneered and pretended not to point it out. It was just stalling for time. If it could make these people fight with each other, it would be perfect. Looking at the divine bird's sneaky face, the heaven and earth high god had a bad feeling. He said hurriedly, "This bird is a spirit-devouring godly parrot. It's full of nonsense. Don't believe it. The divine bird flapped its wings and said proudly, "Since you don't want to believe me, then forget it. Of course, there will be people who are willing to cooperate with me." The strong cultivators of the greedy wolf dimension didn't understand the divine bird and said, "We are willing to cooperate with you. As long as you tell us where the treasure location is, you can have 10% of it." The divine bird raised its head and said disdainfully, "I don't have enough spiritual energy. Otherwise, I would have opened the treasure location myself. Now, there are so many high-level gods here. I can choose any high-level gods to open the treasure location. Those who are willing to give me 30% of the treasure are everywhere. Then what do you want? Just tell me." The greedy wolf exalted replied calmly. He was confident that no one here could compete with him. After the divine bird told him where the treasure location was, he would have the final say in everything. The divine bird pretended to be deep in thought as it jumped left and right. It danced for the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, causing everyone's confidence to be worn away. A superior god priest frowned and was about to get angry when the divine bird said slowly, "I have a grudge against someone. Whoever helps me get rid of him, I will cooperate with that person." Now, even the greedy wolf exalted lost his patience. The divine bird's method of stalling for time was too clumsy. However, they had to give it face. "Just say it. If you dare to talk nonsense again, I will kill you." The greedy wolf exalted scolded harshly in anger. When the greedy wolf exalted was angry, the people here felt the aura in the entire space stagnated. They couldn't even use their godly power. It seemed that the greedy wolf exalted was not as powerful as the 9 Serenities master. "Humph! I'm the godly emperor of all beasts. How can I be ordered around by you? All the artifact spirits in this palace are my good brothers. If you dare to be arrogant in front of me again, I will kill you." The divine bird instantly released its domineering aura, which was similar to the aura of Yi Qinghan when he showed his power. The greedy wolf exhaled deeply. Of course, he was not scared by the divine bird. Instead, he was infuriated. Cracked up, the greedy wolf exalted clenched his iron fists and said coldly, "Are you provoking me again? You don't believe that I can kick you out of the central area, do you? Or you don't believe in the power of the great artifact spirit?" The divine bird was still domineering and disguised itself well. However, some people were startled by its excellent performance. Obviously, this tomb of the god of sin was a huge godly artifact, probably a master artifact. It was normal for it to have an artifact spirit. If the divine bird could communicate with the artifact, how could the treasures here be coveted by others? The greedy wolf exalted stared at the divine bird with squinted eyes and a disdainful smile. There was killing intent in his eyes. He had always been high and mighty. Even the priests at the superior position didn't dare to talk to him in this way, let alone a feathered beast. "Pumph, pumph. I'll summon the will of the great artifact spirit and ask you to respect the great artifact spirit. In this place, the great artifact spirit is the boss, and I'm the second boss. Whoever dares to disobey me will be buried here forever with the tomb of the god of sin." The divine bird said proudly, "Here is the decree of the great artifact spirit. You are too greedy. You will be punished. Only 10 of you who are in the central area can leave this place alive. The rest will die. This is a punishment as well as an experience. Why don't you show your gratitude and accept the decree? How dare you? You are indeed full of nonsense." A priest at the superior position was infuriated. He waved his hand and was about to suppress the divine bird. "It's right. Only 10 of you who are in the central area can leave this place. The rest will die." A majestic voice echoed in the palace. Then the entire space started to move and shrink. It was squeezing toward the center of the palace. The onlookers were shocked. If the space squeezed into the center of the palace, all of them would be crushed to death. All of their lives were in the hands of the artifact spirit. Chapter 702. Everyone was stunned by the artifact spirit's action. They didn't expect the divine bird to intimidate them. If these people died, the divine bird and Yi Qinghan would die too. The artifact spirit was only bluffing. Soon, the divine tomb returned to its original state. The greedy wolf exalted being thought the divine bird was the artifact spirit's representative and didn't dare to offend it. At this moment, apart from the divine bird who was showing off, everyone was pale with fright. An hour later, Yi Qinghan had completely healed all the wounds on his body. He had even gained a portion of his divine energy, and his realm had also risen. After exchanging a few blows with the high-level priests, Yi Qinghan understood that the high-level priests were not invincible. Their bodies had fatal flaws, and as long as they fought in close combat, even the high-level priests would die. The divine bird returned to Yi Qinghan's shoulder after the 5 people's injuries were healed. It didn't mention a word about the treasures in the central area. The artifact spirit didn't say anything else. Everyone was on high alert. They didn't dare to attack first, but they had to defend themselves. As time went by, more and more people gathered. The stone walls around the central area were expanding like a bottomless pit, harvesting the lives of powerful experts. Only 10 people could leave this place alive. Huff, huff, huff. Many prefecture lords started to breathe rapidly. They couldn't control their emotions. Only 10 people could leave, and they were all high god priests. The prefecture lords had no chance at all. But with so many high god priests around, who could say for sure that they could leave this place alive? At the critical moment, many people would attack the strongest in order to survive. As for the rest, they would have to rely on luck. On the 6th day, more than 1,000 people had gathered. On the 8th day, more than 3,000 people had gathered. In the end, no one was gloating over their misfortune. They only smiled bitterly. On the last day, the central area became a huge space. It was like an independent world. More than 5,000 people had gathered here. The 9 Serenities Lord had been kicked out by the artifact spirit. Yi Qinghan couldn't be counted on. The Dragon Abyss High Deity had also arrived, but he didn't join hands with Yi Qinghan. If he wanted to survive, he had to join hands with the high god priests. And the stronger, the better. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. All of a sudden, the stone walls began to tremble and huge stone doors appeared one after another. They were all blocked by the stone walls and were not connected to each other. The deep stone caves were like the giant mouths of monsters that wanted to devour all living things in the world. Congratulations on arriving at Hell's Gate. Let's play a little game. It's divided into 3 stages. The first stage is that there are a total of 99 gates in the central area. Each gate has 10 primal chaos sources. Those who obtain the primal chaos sources can live. Those who don't will die. With the divine source of primal chaos, you can enter the second stage and then the third stage. Those who pass can live, the rest will die. The weapon spirit's tone was calm. He didn't care about the lives of these experts. Everyone felt a chill run down their spines. No one knew whether this artifact spirit was testing people according to the will of the divine tomb's master, or whether it was toying with others with its own will. You can choose from the 99 gates of hell. Remember, only 10 people can walk out from each gate. Moreover, they must be people who have obtained the primal chaos divine source. The first stage only lasts for 3 days. Plunder as many lives as you like. Let's begin, the artifact spirit said coldly. Everyone was terrified. Primal chaos divine source, many of them had never heard of it before. Even if it was right in front of them, could they recognize it? However, Yi Qinghan and Xianyan Xue's eyes lit up. No one knew more about the primal chaos divine source than the 2 of them. The 2 of them looked at each other with a smile in their eyes. Then, the 7 of them rushed towards one of the gates of hell. Swoosh. As soon as they entered the gates of hell, the Milky Way rotated, yin and yang flowed backward, and the space changed. The 7 of them appeared on a huge star. There was no vitality at all, only stones and mountains. It was gray and there was no spiritual chi. They couldn't fly, the gravity was so great that even walking was difficult. Yi Qinghan's physical body was superb. He walked as if he was flying. His eyes flickered as he wandered around the lonely star, trying to find the primal chaos divine source. The primal chaos divine source was no different from stones. At least from the outside, one couldn't tell the difference. Moreover, the primal chaos divine source had naturally formed inscriptions, so the primal chaos divine source wouldn't leak out. Unless one had seen the primal chaos divine source before, they wouldn't be able to recognize it. The star was so huge that one couldn't see the end of it. It was almost impossible to find 10 primal chaos divine source in only 3 days. But could such a thing stump the divine bird? Follow the great divine emperor of all beasts. You'll definitely earn enough. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Humans couldn't fly, but it didn't mean that the divine bird couldn't. At this moment, it soared into the sky and rushed towards a valley. As soon as it entered the valley, Yi Qinghan's divine bird let out a long cry, as if it had sensed something. Whoosh. The divine bird turned into an eagle and dived into the depths. The 7 of them were as fast as lightning as they entered the valley. There was a huge round stone in the valley. On the stone was a fist-sized stone. Yi Qinghan stretched out his hand and grabbed it. He placed it in his palm and said calmly, "This is the primal chaos divine source. Continue searching. Now, other than our teammates, everyone else is our enemy. Take all 10 primal chaos divine source in your hands." The divine bird was excited. An indescribable sense of accomplishment surged in its heart. It turned and rushed in another direction. More and more experts rushed into the star. There were about 90 of them. Soon, they spread out and searched for the primal chaos divine source. The divine bird was very fast. It led the group and quickly found 3 primal chaos divine sources. However, it was blocked by 2 superior god priests. The 2 of them relied on the fact that they had 2 superior god priests while Yi Qinghan only had 1 evil dominator. They were prepared to kill Yi Qinghan and the others to take the primal chaos divine source. They didn't expect to be beaten up by Yi Qinghan and the others. Even the primal chaos divine source couldn't escape. They were all suppressed on the spot. After taking the Qian Kun ring and the primal chaos divine source, Yi Qinghan led the group to continue searching for the primal chaos divine source. Boundless divine power surged out of the star. Experts from all sides were fighting. They couldn't recognize the primal chaos divine source. They could only kill the others and keep 10 people alive. Then they would slowly search for it. Yi Qinghan and the others searched for a day and a night. They found 5 primal chaos divine sources and began to hide. They tried their best to avoid fighting with others. Someone tell me, what is the primal chaos divine source? A deep voice roared, reverberating through the star. More than one person wanted to ask this question. However, at this time, other than teammates, who were all mortal enemies, who would say it out loud? So strong. Yi Qinghan was 100 miles away, but he felt his ears ringing. He couldn't help but look into the depths. A middle-aged man was holding a large machete. He left behind footprints with every step he took. Even the mountain rocks were crushed by him. He is indeed very strong. He should be stronger than me. He is from the ravenous wolf plain. I don't know him. The evil dominator nodded in agreement. If the evil dominator didn't know this person, the others wouldn't be able to recognize him either. At this time, if they wanted to cooperate, they had to know the other party's background. Yi Qinghan didn't dare to casually trust others. At this moment, that man actually rushed towards Yi Qinghan like a monster. He pushed through the mountain range. Wherever he went, no one dared to stop him. Old man evil, tell me, what the hell is the primal chaos divine source? That man actually recognized the evil dominator. In the blink of an eye, he rushed in front of everyone. His voice was like thunder. It shocked Mecha and the others so much that their faces turned pale. Chapter 703. The man was about 2 meters tall, and his machete was even bigger than Yi Qinghan's. It was even more clumsy. He walked with vigor, and his dignified face was imposing. He called out the evil dominator's identity, so he obviously knew who the evil dominator was. The evil dominator was surprised. He thought for a long time. He should be able to remember such a strong person. After all, such a man was very distinguishable. However, he could not remember where he had seen him before. I'm the frenzied blade cannon monarch. Have you gone senile? How many years has it been and you don't remember me? The man asked angrily. Frenzied Blade Cannon Monarch? The evil dominator finally remembered. Back then, when this guy was still a medium god, he was training in the voracious wolf dimension. He was surrounded by dozens of masters of the same level. The evil dominator happened to pass by and reached out to save him. At that time, he saw the Frenzied Sword King barging in like a mountain cannon, and he gave him a nickname, Frenzied Sword Cannon King. Now, he was no longer the Frenzied Blade Cannon Monarch, but the Frenzied Blade War Reverend. He was quite famous in the greedy wolf plane. So it's you, kid. I didn't expect you to have grown to this level. The evil dominator was surprised. Thanks to you, your few words enlighten me. My cultivation soared all the way. After 3,000 years of seclusion, I successfully entered the high god realm. I was looking for you at that time. Later, I found out that you were from the myth plane. During peacetime, I can't enter your plane. I didn't expect to meet you here. The Frenzied Blade War Reverend laughed. Since we met again, it's fate. Team up with us. Even if we can't guarantee that you will pass, we can at least pass this level. The evil dominator looked at the Frenzied Blade War Reverend and suddenly wanted to rope him in. The Frenzied Blade War Reverend glanced at Yi Qinghan and the others and frowned. Why did you bring so many burdens? Cut the crap. If it weren't for these little ones, you and I wouldn't even pass the first level. The evil dominator reprimanded him politely. After they introduced themselves, Yi Qinghan took out the Primal Chaos Divinity Source and explained it to him. Only then did the Frenzied Blade War Reverend understand what the Primal Chaos Divinity Source was. His simple and honest expression was a little awkward. Indeed, there was always something that one could learn from others. No matter how powerful one was, there would be things that one did not know. Yi Qinghan and the Frenzied Blade War Reverend discussed for a while and came to an agreement. Yi Qinghan and the others would help him clear the first stage, but if he needed to contribute later, the War Reverend would have to go all out. Frenzied Blade War Reverend made a heavy oath. Although Yi Qinghan did not believe in oaths, Frenzied Blade War Reverend did look simple and honest. He was different from others, so he chose to believe him for the time being. After they got to know each other better, they realized that Frenzied Blade War Reverend was very easygoing. He was not as arrogant and difficult to get along with as the other superior god priests. When everyone called him Cannon King, he would only smile foolishly and feel happy. He felt that everyone called him that because they approved of him. With the Cannon King joining them, the 8 of them no longer kept a low profile. They began to kill experts and snatch their Qian Kuan rings. In 2 days, they found another 4 pieces of Primal Chaos Divinity Source. Logically speaking, they should have enough Primal Chaos Divinity Source. There was only 1 piece left, so there was no need to continue searching. However, Yi Qinghan continued to let the divine bird dig out the last piece. The Primal Chaos Divinity Source was extremely valuable. As long as one knew how to use it, it was equivalent to having an immortal body. Yi Qinghan kept 3 pieces of Primal Chaos Divinity Source and gave the remaining 7 to them. He reminded them, let's continue to pretend to search. Don't let others know that we have already found it. Otherwise, we will definitely be attacked. 8 days later, there were still more than 40 people left on the planet. Many of them were going crazy. Until now, they had not found the Primal Chaos Divinity Source and were even more clueless. They were so angry that they killed anyone they saw. Prefecture masters and young people became cannon fodder. They were being chased by more than 10 superior god priests. There were a total of 8 people in Yi Qinghan's group. There were 2 superior god priests, so no one dared to provoke them. However, there were always some ignorant fools. 3 superior god priests joined forces to kill the 8 of them. In the end, they were surrounded by the 8 of them. None of the 3 superior gods managed to escape. There were fewer and fewer superior god priests on the planet. Yi Qinghan and his group became more and more aggressive. They began to take the initiative to plunder resources. Since the Primal Chaos Divinity Source was in their hands, this group of people would die sooner or later. It would be a waste to leave the treasures here. After a series of massacres, there were only a dozen people left on the planet and 2 superior god priests. The superior god priests despaired. It was the last day, and not a single primal chaos divinity source had appeared. They could only wait for death. This old man can't accept this. The superior god priests roared. They were all existences that led powerful sects and clans. They were even the ancestors of divine nations. However, at this time, they were like ants. They couldn't even keep their lives. The manor head-level existences and the young geniuses cautiously retreated to the other side and huddled together. They could only pray that the artifact spirit was joking and wouldn't really leave them behind. When Yi Qinghan and the others saw that the remaining 10 or so people had completely formed a group, they began to retreat, no longer fighting. 10 days were up. The stone door appeared in front of everyone. However, it was sealed. There was a groove on the stone door that was about the same size as the primal chaos divinity source. It seemed like the artifact spirit wasn't joking. Without the primal chaos divinity source, there was no way out. If they were trapped in this godforsaken place, they might as well self-destruct and die. Even the superior god priests couldn't stand living in complete despair. Only when Yi Qinghan and his group retreated to the stone door did everyone realize that they had obtained the primal chaos divinity source. The eyes of the two superior god priests lit up. They immediately rushed towards Yi Qinghan and his group. Fellow Taoists, please wait. Can you let us see what the primal chaos divinity source looks like? If you have extra, please sell it to us. We are willing to pay any price. One of the middle-aged superior god priests said in a deep voice. This superior god priest was very young. At least, he was much younger than the evil dominator. He was probably comparable to the Cannon King. Frenzied Blade War Reverend? I am Shao Xingyang, the third-generation head of the Shao family in the Greedy Wolf Plain. I beg you to save my life. I am willing to follow you to death. The other middle-aged man said. The two middle-aged men had only lived for half of their lives. How could they be willing to stay here and struggle at death's door? As long as they could get out alive, they would be willing to be slaves or servants, let alone follow you to death. The Frenzied Blade War Reverend looked at the two. The Shao family was one of the brighter families in the Greedy Wolf Plain. They had won the hearts of the people in their territory. Moreover, Shao Xingyang's combat strength was comparable to his. He was someone worth befriending. As for the other person, the evil dominator and the Cannon King didn't know him. Only Shao Xingyang knew him. The Cannon King looked at Yi Qinghan and explained Shao Xingyang's identity and character. He wanted to ask for Shao Xingyang's life. Yi Qinghan was silent for a moment. The others in the outside world had obviously given up on cooperating with him. At this time, finding one or two more helpers would increase his chances of survival. He nodded and agreed. As for the other person, Yi Qinghan looked straight at Shao Xingyang. If Shao Xingyang was willing to vouch for his identity, he could give him the other primal chaos divinity source. Chapter 704. Shao Xingyang saw that Yi Qinghan was looking at him and was secretly shocked. He thought to himself, could it be that the leader of this group is actually a mid-level god? Judging from his expression, he must have found the great god source and has extra. Young master, I am Shao Xingyang. As long as you help me leave this place, I am willing to give you all my wealth and resources and protect you for the rest of my life. Shao Xingyang bowed and said, Sure, but how do I trust you? Yi Qinghan asked calmly. I am willing to listen to your orders. Shao Xingyang gave up his bottom line in order to survive. I need to control your divinity. I hope you understand that at times like this, everyone will choose to seek benefits and avoid harm, choosing to ally with the strong. I'm not confident that I can make you give up everything to ally with me with so many mid-god priests, Yi Qinghan said calmly. No problem. I believe that the friend of Frenzied Blade War Reverend won't ask me to do anything despicable. Shao Xingyang agreed without hesitation. The other high god priest was anxious and kept hinting at Shao Xingyang, hoping that he would say something good. Shao Xingyang released his divine sense and did not defend himself. He allowed Yi Qinghan's soul to rush into his sea of consciousness and place a strand of destruction energy in his godhead. Souls could not defend against physical attacks. In other words, if Yi Qinghan wanted to kill him, it would only take a single thought. After Yi Qinghan controlled Xiao Xingyang, he gave him a piece of great God source of chaos. Xiao Xingyang was overjoyed. The feeling of escaping from death made him very excited. But soon, Xiao Xingyang looked at the other high god priest and said respectfully, "Young master, this is Reverend Xian Qing from the voracious wolf plain. He is a low-key person and rarely goes out, but he is trustworthy. I have known him for tens of thousands of years. If you have extra great god source of chaos, please give him a piece. He will wholeheartedly assist you." With Xiao Xingyang's guarantee, Yi Qinghan nodded and placed another strand of destruction energy into Reverend Xian Qing's godhead. In order to survive, Reverend Xian Qing didn't dare to resist and allowed Yi Qinghan to invade his godhead. After entering the godhead, Yi Qinghan discovered that this Xian Qing Zun was actually the same as Emperor Yi, a heavenly soul godhead. The 10 divine sources had all appeared. The other young geniuses and strong cultivators at the level of the prefecture lords were in despair. They no longer wanted to compete for the primal chaos divine sources. They could only ask them to pass on their last words. "Fellow Taoists, please help me pass a message to my family. I'm the patriarch of the Li family of the Yu province of the ravenous wolf plain. This cosmos ring is my reward. Please. I'm the lord of the Clear River prefecture of the voracious wolf plain. Please pass on a message, War Venerable." More than a dozen strong cultivators automatically offered up their cosmos rings and opportunities. They didn't want to live, but they wanted to pass on their last words. There were rings from the ravenous wolf plain and the mythical plane. Yi Qinghan took the mythical plane's cosmos ring, and Xiao Xingyang took the ravenous wolf plane's cosmos ring before leaving. Once the primal chaos divine sources were inserted into the groove, they would be teleported out. The group of 10 were all teleported to the central area. They discovered that less than 10 strong cultivators came out from the other Hell's Gates. Some Hell's Gates didn't even have a single person come out. They were all wiped out. More than 8,000 strong cultivators were instantly eliminated until only 500 were left. Here, everything was fair. The high god priests were no longer high and mighty. If they didn't have the opportunity to obtain the primal chaos divine sources, they could only be locked in the stone door and slowly wait for death. Some elite geniuses had heaven-defying luck and successfully passed the first stage. In the first stage, all the prefecture lords were eliminated. They died tragically behind the stone door. There were still more than 300 elites and more than 100 high god priests left. It was very tragic. The atmosphere in the central area was unusually gloomy. No one spoke. Everyone was waiting for the weapon spirit to announce the second stage. Yi Qinghan glanced around and found that High God Chen Kuan and High God Wu Yu were still alive. However, Central Heavenly God was no longer there. It seemed like he was already dead. A murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He stood aside with Zhong Kuang in his hand. Lone Wolf and Lord Mystic Moon stood out among the crowd. They didn't rely on luck to walk out alive. They relied on their true strength. Both of them were as graceful as jade. One of them was as cold as a wolf and was unapproachable. The other was as ethereal as the moon and as high and mighty as an immortal king. Even the high god priests weren't willing to stand close to them because it was too dangerous. Congratulations. Those who can walk out are the best. As for those who can't, they can only wait for death. Otherwise, they can choose to commit suicide. The weapon spirit's announcement was equivalent to announcing the end of the first stage. Nearly 8,000 strong cultivators had died in the first stage. Any one of them was an existence that could dominate a region. Huff huff huff, greedy wolf high god exhaled a few mouthfuls of murky air. His eyes were burning with anger. He had always regarded everyone in the world as ants. He had never thought that he would be trampled on like that. He could die at any time. Many of the high god priests couldn't bear the pressure, let alone the geniuses and elites. Many of them broke down on the spot. Some of them even burst into tears. The second stage is very simple. It's a hunting game. The central area is divided into 10 areas. 10 ancient ferocious beasts will attack you. As long as you can survive until the end, you can enter the third stage. If you can kill or subdue the ferocious beasts, you can go straight to the outside of the tomb of the god of sin. But it's a bit difficult because the ancient ferocious beasts have the bloodline of the main god. They have been sealed here for many years and haven't eaten anything. Perhaps more than half of the people here will become their food. The weapon spirit said coldly. You're a freak. Someone couldn't bear the pressure and cursed wildly. Lunatic. Lunatic. I want to leave this place. The young people with weak willpower scratched their ears and cheeks as if they had gone crazy. This stage is not a test. It's just a punishment for trespassing here. The tomb of the great main god is not to be blasphemed. If you want to reap without sowing, you have to face the cruel punishment. The weapon spirit said coldly, as if it had emotions. An artifact spirit with emotions was terrifying. It would have its own will, and when it became playful, it would directly kill everyone. Yi Qinghan was short of breath. 10 areas, 10 ancient ferocious beasts, and all of them were at the peak of the high god priests. He was afraid that ordinary people in this group would die here. The 10 people couldn't help but stand back to back and shorten the distance between them. These 10 ancient ferocious beasts are space-type divine beasts. They are the space-time flying leopard, the celestial spirit wolf, the hell tiger, the space war dragon, the thunder cat, the ancient celestial scale, the son of the ancient space main god, and the son of the giant dragon, the Pishio. They can travel through space and appear anywhere in the tomb of the god of sin at will. Stone walls and inscriptions can't stop them. From now on, you can either subdue them, die, or feed them with your flesh and blood. The weapon spirit reminded them again. It seemed that it was deliberately frightening them and wanted to see them panic and despair. Chapter 705. The 10 godly beasts all had the bloodline of the main gods. They were all at the peak of the superior god worshippers and space-type godly beasts. They could travel through space, and even the tomb of the god of sin couldn't stop them. How could these people fight against them? At this moment, even the high-level priests were in despair, let alone the elites. Greedy Wolf Exalted stared at the 10 most powerful people, including Shangqing Exalted God, Qianquan Exalted God, Wuyo Exalted God, Frenzied Blade War Holiness, Xiao Xingyang, and the 2 top-level high-level priests beside him. Finally, he stared at Lone Wolf and Master Mystic Moon and said in a low voice, "If we cooperate, we may have a chance to survive." Shangqing chose to cooperate with Greedy Wolf Exalted without hesitation. As for Qianquan and Wuyo, they agreed without hesitation. As for Lone Wolf and Master Mystic Moon, they also nodded silently, not saying much. However, Furious Saber War Holiness and Xiao Ziyang shook their heads and refused the invitation of Greedy Wolf High Holiness, the most powerful one among them. They stood firmly by Yi Qinghan's side, not only because they were under Yi Qinghan's control, but also because they knew that if they wanted to live longer in this hopeless place, they needed more than strength, but also luck. There were many powerful people in the superior god worshippers. Master Xianyue chose Longyuan and Yuqing. Soon, they gathered together and formed the most powerful group. Then, more than 10 superior god worshippers joined this group. Greedy Wolf Exalted wouldn't give up on these cannon fodders. Gradually, almost all the real superior god worshippers gathered together. There were about 40 of them. On Yi Qinghan's side, the Frenzied Blade and Xiao Ziyang had recruited 7 superior god worshippers. Including the Patriarch of the Martial Kingdom, there were 11 superior god worshippers in total. It was a good force. As for the other groups, they were all waiting for death. Before the team formation was complete, a low roar shook the central area. A huge black tiger appeared out of thin air and grabbed a superior god priest. Then, it disappeared into thin air. The superior god priest only had time to scream and leave behind a few drops of blood before he disappeared. Hell tiger! It was unknown who screamed, but everyone was so scared that their faces turned pale. Let's work together and try to take down a godly beast. Then we can all leave. Greedy Wolf Exalted roared in a low voice. Meowed at a soft meow made everyone's hair stand on end. Then, a beam of white light blinded them. They all covered their eyes with their hands. Puffed at a huge golden cat, whose eyes were filled with green light and was almost all skin and bones due to hunger, spat out a golden bolt of lightning from its mouth. It directly pierced through the divine body of a high-level deity priest, devouring all of his vitality and essence. Even his divinity became motionless as it grabbed him with its claws and swallowed him into its stomach. Sush. Godly worshippers. Godly God worshipper worshippers God level God. Were godly God demon of the superior God level. Realm, level godly worshippers worshipper. The more powerhouses there were, the more they would attract the mutated beasts. They had been starved for far too long and had been sealed for who knew how long. Their savage natures could no longer be suppressed, so they would definitely look for experts to replenish their bloodline power. Howl. Howl. With the roar of a leopard and the howl of a wolf, two silhouettes appeared at the periphery of the Tanlang group like lightning. They grabbed a powerhouse and disappeared. Yi Qinghan and the others felt their hair stand on end. These mutated divine beasts were too terrifying. The superior god priests were unable to put up any resistance against them. They appeared out of thin air and disappeared into thin air. No one could do anything to them. Just as Yi Qinghan and company were on their guard, a figure appeared in their line of sight. It had two horns on its head and a pair of short wings on its back. Its four stubby limbs made it look like a miniature dragon or a dragon horse. It was only 2 meters long and 1 meter tall. Its mouth was filled with fangs that seemed to be indestructible. It could bite through the void and swallow all things. Pishio. This was the creature on the dome of the tomb of the god of sin, the son of the dragon. Pai Shio's target was Yi Qinghan. This was because Yi Qinghan had the bloodline power that it wanted. It could instantly replenish the losses it had suffered over the years. Pai Shio's front limbs stood up as its sharp claws tore through the void. It bared its fangs and was about to pounce on Yi Qinghan. It was too fast, so fast that Yi Qinghan could not resist. He only had time to wave his iron fist and strike at Pai Shio's front limbs. Boom! Pai Shio's fangs had already touched Yi Qinghan's neck, but its front limbs suddenly suffered a heavy blow. The god-severing glove suddenly erupted and sent it flying. Roar! Pai Shio let out a dragon's roar. It was incomparably angry. It coveted Yi Qinghan's dragon blood even more. It was too hungry and had less than 10% of its combat strength. Otherwise, it would have bitten off Yi Qinghan's head. Be it speed or strength, Pai Shio was suppressed to the lowest. When Yi Qinghan touched Pai Shio, he felt the blood in his body burn. He had infinite strength and veins popped out all over his body. He wanted to transform into a dragon. Roar! Yi Qinghan let out a long roar and transformed into a dragon. A true ancient dragon with a high-level bloodline. It had dragon horns and a long beard. It was majestic. A dragon had appeared. Not only were all the powerhouses shocked, even the space-type mythological beasts were shocked, especially the Pai Shio. Looking at the giant dragon that Yi Qinghan had transformed into, it was actually somewhat dumbfounded. It had always thought that Yi Qinghan's flesh and blood could make up for its lost essence, but it never thought that the blood in Yi Qinghan's body was actually dragon blood. Pai Shio, the son of a dragon. What was it most afraid of? Of course, it was a dragon. Yi Qinghan opened its mouth and roared. Its sharp claws tore through the void. It looked down at Pai Shio from above. With a swing of its long tail, it shook the space. Pai Shio trembled and howled. It lowered its head as if it was wronged. It slowly curled up and flew to Yi Qinghan's armpit. Tears flowed out involuntarily. It was like a hungry puppy that ran into its mother's arms. Yi Qinghan did not expect Pai Shio to run to his chest to look for food. With a shake of his tiger body, he immediately returned to his human form and grabbed Pai Shio's neck. Pai Shio looked at Yi Qinghan in confusion. It did not know what to do. Yi Qinghan found that Pai Shio was indeed crazy from hunger. He directly threw a superior deity divine spark to its mouth. Pai Shio swallowed the deity divine spark in one gulp, completely stimulating its appetite. Its eyes turned green as it stared at Yi Qinghan. There was no other way. In order to feed this little thing, Yi Qinghan took out more than 10 strength recovery pills and heaven reversal pills and threw them all to it. With every bite, Pai Shio's flesh would increase and it would become stronger. With a light shake, It shook off Yi Qinghan's big hand. Roared at Pai Xiu turned around and pounced on the other teams. It opened its mouth and swallowed. Whether it was a superior deity priest or a genius elite, they were all swallowed in an instant. Even the divine weapons became food in its mouth. There was no need to spit them out. At this moment, another ancient beast appeared. It was the son of the space master deity, the ancient heavenly Qilin. It had the bloodline of the ancient sacred beast Qilin. It fiercely pounced on Yi Qinghan and more than 10 people. It used its eyes to imprison the surrounding space, suppressing more than 10 people in place and making them unable to move. Yi Qinghan looked on helplessly as it ate a superior deity priest and rushed towards him. Its eyes were ferocious. It wanted to change the order of space, but it was powerless to resist. He was instantly shocked. At this moment, Pai Xiu swung its forelimbs and ruthlessly swung it at the ancient heavenly Qilin's huge body. Bang! The ancient heavenly Qilin was actually sent flying by its palm. It crashed into the stone wall and immediately disappeared. Roar, roar, roared at Pai Xiu continuously cried out softly. It rubbed against Yi Qinghan's waist as if it was expressing its goodwill. It was very cute and adorable. Yi Qinghan's body was drenched in cold sweat. He had already felt the aura of death just now. If Pai Xiu's speed was a bit slower, he would be finished. Yi Qinghan patted Pai Xiu's dragon horn. Soon after, he tore his left hand with one hand and forced out a large amount of blood for it to recover its battle strength. Pai Xiu swallowed the dragon blood in one gulp. It was unable to hold back its excitement as it jumped around in joy. Its entire body turned golden and emitted rays of light. It was as if an ancient sacred beast had descended. It was incomparably majestic. The people from the other teams were all stupefied. Among the 10 teams, other than Yi Qinghan's team, the others had suffered disastrous losses. Only 6 mutated divine beasts had appeared, and more than half of them were dead or injured. And Yi Qinghan's team had all subdued Pai Xiu in an instant. Many people were regretting and angry. Why didn't they choose Yi Qinghan's team? Long Yuan's face twitched, his fingertips trembled slightly. The one who regretted it the most was him. He originally had some relationship with Yi Qinghan. If he had chosen to cooperate with Yi Qinghan from the start, he wouldn't be in such a miserable state. Congratulations, you have subdued the son of the dragon, Pai Xiu. I didn't expect you to actually have the bloodline of the dragon. Are you a human or not? The voice of the artifact spirit suddenly resounded. The space instantly became still. Yi Qinghan recovered his arm. He had wasted a large amount of essence and was abnormally tired. He said hoarsely, "Of course I'm a human. You can take 10 people with you and leave this place. Only 10 people. The others must stay." The artifact spirit said indifferently. Yi Qinghan was indifferent as he looked at his team. There were a total of 16 people. Since this group of people had chosen his team, he couldn't give up. I choose to continue subduing a mutated divine beast. I won't leave anyone in the team behind. Yi Qinghan said firmly. The 8 higher god priests who joined later were incomparably moved. Their bodies trembled slightly. If Yi Qinghan's team left, these 8 higher god priests would probably become food for the divine beasts. Bold, I like it. Then I'll satisfy you. The artifact spirit then retreated, and the space opened up again. In an instant, 8 divine beasts appeared. Except for the space battle dragon, all the other divine beasts had appeared. The lightning cat was still as fast as lightning. The lightning it spat out was too sharp, and even the higher god priests couldn't block it. When it appeared for the 3rd time and charged towards Yi Qinghan's team, the person with different pupils suddenly removed the illusion on his face. A devilish face appeared, and 2 rays of light shot out from his eyes, rushing towards the lightning cat's eyes. The lightning cat's speed was too fast, and it just happened to collide with the person with different pupils. Its soul lost control, and it fell to the ground. Meowed at the lightning cat was caught in the palm of the person with different pupils. Its 4 eyes stared at it, and the lightning cat couldn't move. Its eyes were filled with confusion, as if it saw endless mountains and rivers, and also as if it saw a supreme god. It was stunned and didn't dare to move. Chapter 706. The eyes of the man with different pupils shocked everyone, including the artifact spirit. In an instant, the artifact spirit froze the entire space. King with different pupils, the son of a sovereign god. The artifact spirit exclaimed in disbelief. It seemed that he knew the origin of the man with different pupils very well. The lightning cat and the man with different pupils looked at each other. The ferocious look in its eyes turned to fear and then to docility, slowly submitting. The tip of its tongue licked the hand of the man with different pupils and curled up in her hand. The second spatial divine beast was captured. The martial god nation's old ancestor and the others were excited, knowing that they had chosen the right person this time. As for the greedy wolf team, their eyes were wide open, unable to accept that the first ones to tame the spatial divine beast were actually two middle god priests. Congratulations, son of king with different pupils, you have successfully tamed the lightning cat. You are still qualified to take away 10 people. The artifact spirit calmed down and said slowly, "Many thanks, Lord Artifact Spirit." The man with different pupils bowed. "No need to thank me, this is your opportunity. Seeing that your ancestor was a good friend of my master, I will give you another big gift." The artifact spirit's voice paused, and a golden light rushed into the man's mind, disappearing without a trace in the blink of an eye. No one knew what kind of opportunity the artifact spirit gave the man with different pupils, but looking at his ruddy complexion and rapid breathing, it must be a supreme treasure. Everyone was envious, and the divine bird was drooling, shouting, "Great artifact spirit god, seeing that I am the myriad beast divine emperor, give me some opportunity too." The artifact spirit did not listen to the divine bird's words and changed the topic. "You too can leave with your team, or if you are interested, I can take you to play the third stage." The artifact spirit's voice became gloomy and cold. It seemed that the third stage would be terrifying, and less than 1 in 10 would be able to leave alive. Yi Qinghan and the man with different pupils each obtained a beast, enough to take away everyone in the team. There were even 5 extra spots, giving the others hope. Long Yuan wanted to say something but hesitated. He wanted to beg Yi Qinghan, but he couldn't bring himself to say it. After all, this was too embarrassing. He was the one who gave up on Yi Qinghan first, and now he was asking Yi Qinghan to save him. If it were anyone else, they wouldn't agree. "Wait, young man, you still have 5 spots. Take me with you. I'm willing to give you an opportunity and take you as my disciple." Greedy Wolf Exalted said in a deep voice. "Bestow? Accept me as a disciple? Are you worthy?" Yi Qinghan was disdainful. Greedy Wolf Exalted's arrogant look was asking for a beating. Now that things had come to this, how could he still be so arrogant and say something like, "bestowal"? He was simply courting death. Greedy Wolf Exalted's expression changed instantly, and he clenched his fists. However, he was an old fox after all. He knew that Yi Qinghan was even more arrogant, so he quickly corrected himself. "Fellow cultivator, you misunderstood me. It was a slip of the tongue. As long as you are willing to give me a spot, I'm willing to give you a high-level deity artifact, a high-level deity art, and 100,000 top-grade deity crystals." Yi Qinghan looked at Greedy Wolf Exalted and knew that this kind of person would definitely burn the bridge after crossing the river. After they got out of here, Greedy Wolf Exalted would definitely look for him. Even if he couldn't get the high-level deity artifact and the high-level deity art, he would rob him of his opportunity. "No need." Yi Qinghan refused coldly. Greedy Wolf Exalted was furious, and his eyes were filled with coldness. "Mansion Lord Yi?" Long Yuan forced a smile and was too embarrassed to say anything. "Forget it. Just come with me. Consider it as repaying your kindness to me that day." Yi Qinghan sighed. Long Yuan's choice was right. At that point, anyone would choose to cooperate with the strong. After all, Long Yuan had lent him hundreds of high-level deity crystals, and Long Shan had even actively sought for external help to help the Guangzong fight in the arena. Long Yuan had to return the favor. Long Yuan's nose twitched, and he quickly came to Yi Qinghan's side. He didn't want to say anything more, and he regretted that he didn't grab hold of such a great opportunity. This was no longer a simple matter of luck, but a matter of bottom line. He and Yi Qinghan had a good relationship. Logically speaking, even if they died, they should have formed a team and left. Unfortunately, they missed the opportunity. Even if they returned alive, there would be a layer of estrangement between them, and their relationship wouldn't be as good as before. Let's go. Yi Qinghan turned and was about to leave. Don't. There are still 4 spots left. You're such a wastrel. Not only did you give away 1 person, but you also want to give up 4 spots? The evil dominator said with disappointment. The others nodded, agreeing with the evil dominator. 4 spots were equivalent to 4 lives. Any superior deity would do anything to get them. Superior deity artifacts and secret techniques were probably the starting price. Bring 4 more people. We can earn some money. You have a lot of people in the Guangzhong, so you need some resources. Xian Yanxue also suggested. Shangqing and Yuqing heard this and immediately knew that their chance had come. They quickly said, Mansion Lord Yi, for Li Feng's sake, bring us along. We're willing to give you 30% of the territory. The founding emperors of the 2 divine kingdoms were straightforward and generous, offering 30% of the territory as soon as they opened their mouths. Yi Qinghan looked at Li Feng. He could see that Yi Qinghan still cared a lot about Shangqing. His eyes were filled with hope that Yi Qinghan would agree. As the saying went, even if you don't look at the monk, you have to look at the Buddha. Shangqing was Li Feng's master after all. Moreover, Li Feng and Yi Qinghan had worked together from the beginning. He had to give him some face and nodded in agreement. Li Feng nodded gratefully. With 2 spots removed, there were only 2 spots left. At this time, wealth was just a worldly possession. Shangqing and Yuqing were not sad about losing 30% of the territory. Instead, they were excited. They knew that they could leave this place alive. Qinghan, I have a good friend. Can you bring him along? Cannon King asked in a muffled voice. He had to give Frenzy Blade Cannon King face. Yi Qinghan nodded and agreed. A superior god priest who looked younger than Frenzy Blade Cannon King walked out from the crowd with a grateful face. There was only 1 spot left. Everyone madly increased the price. They wanted to get this spot even if they were willing to be slaves. However, Qian Kuan and Wu You did not say anything. They knew that their relationship with Yi Qinghan was irreconcilable. Even if they said anything, it would be useless. Greed Exalted still wanted to change Yi Qinghan's mind. He offered the highest price. Frenzy Blade Cannon King, Xiao Xingyang, and the evil dominator were all tempted. Unfortunately, Yi Qinghan was not tempted at all. That old man was too strong. Yi Qinghan did not feel safe at all. After being rejected by Yi Qinghan again and again, Greed Exalted was furious. His eyes were full of murderous intent. However, the more he acted like this, the more unlikely Yi Qinghan would take him away. The competition for the last spot was intense. Yi Qinghan focused his attention on the mythical realm. He noticed Zhenlong Overlord. His territory was not far from the crazy sect and was not far from the entrance of the endless realms. Yi Qinghan was ready to subdue him and agreed to Zhenlong Overlord's submission. The 20 spots were all taken. The weapon's spirit instantly teleported them out of the tomb of the god of sin. The divine bird was still not satisfied. It flattered the divine bird, hoping that the weapon spirit would give it an opportunity. However, the weapon spirit ignored it. It did not even give it half a spiritual crystal, let alone an opportunity. Outside the tomb of the god of sin, there were only people from the Plum tribe and the crazy sect. Most of the people who were eliminated had already left. They did not dare to stay here. When they saw Yi Qinghan and his group coming out, they immediately came to greet them. Yi Qinghan casually gave away a few superior divine weapons that he did not need. He gave the Sky Piercer to Yi Lingxian. Although it was valuable, it could not be compared to friendship. Yi Lingxian had helped him without any complaints. This divine weapon was worth giving away. The long spear was even more terrifying than the battle sky spear. Yi Qinghan shook it and directly pushed it to Zhang Chuanqiu. He smiled and said, Chuanqiu, I know you don't have a good weapon. This long spear is for you. Chapter 707. Zhang Chuanqiu brandished his spear, but it wasn't easy to control a high-tier divine weapon. His strength was still lacking, but Yi Qinghan had obtained many treasures in the Tomb of the Gods. It was just a matter of time before he became weak. Yi Qinghan smiled. He had profited this time. Looking around, he didn't see Nine Remoteness Lord anywhere. He couldn't help but worry. He didn't enter the center, nor was he in the periphery. Could something have happened to him? Where's my master? Yi Qinghan asked curiously. He was too powerful, so he was forcefully pushed out of the divine mausoleum by the implement spirit. His face was covered in dirt, and he has already returned. Yi Qinghan shrugged. It seemed that Nine Remoteness's strength was close to that of an overgod. What he lacked was the profound mysteries of the overgod realm. Once he broke through, he would become an overgod. You can all go back, Yi Qinghan said calmly. The martial god nation's patriarch bowed and cupped his fists. Manor Lord Yi, this old man owes you a life. If you have any requests in the future, this old man will do anything. Many thanks, Manor Lord Yi. If there's anything you need in the future, just send a message. This old man will do his best to support you. The 7 high-tier gods of the ravenous wolf plain bowed. Then I'll thank you in advance. Yi Qinghan nodded. This time, not only did he obtain treasures, but he also gained the friendship of these high-tier gods. It was an unexpected gain. Shangqing and Yuqing hesitated for a moment before deciding to keep their promise and give 1/3 of their territory to Crazed Manor. 1/3 of a divine nation's territory was huge. It was at least the size of 12 prefectures. Long Yuan didn't know what to say. He left quietly, thinking of a way to make up for this relationship. Yi Qinghan shook his head as he watched Yi Qinghan's desolate back. Actually, what he had done today wasn't considered overboard. It was just that he couldn't get over it. If he were to meet Yi Qinghan again in the future, he would feel inferior. The evil dominator left and did not ask Xian Yanshui to return. Only the frenzied sword cannon monarch was left. He was alone, but he was willing to stay in the Crazed Manor. Yi Qinghan welcomed him with open arms. As for Xiao Xingyang and Xiao Yu, Yi Qinghan had them leave the mythological realm and return to the ravenous wolf plain to settle their affairs. If they were willing to return, they could. What the Kuang Manor wanted were people who truly wanted to stay. Those who wanted to leave couldn't be kept. Xiao Xingyang bowed and flew away with his friends. Li Feng cupped his fists and said, "Many thanks, Brother Yi. I owe you a favor and I'll repay you in the future. This opportunity was quite good, so I need to go back and prepare to break through to the high god realm." Li Feng was only a little more than 3,000 years old, but he was already preparing to break through to become a higher god. Even the Canon King was shocked by this. The higher god priests in the various major dimensions were all old monsters who had lived for hundreds of thousands of years. Those who were 50 or 60,000 years old were rare, and those who were under 10,000 years old were even rarer. As for those who were 3,000 years old, Li Feng was the first genius he had seen. Farewell. I wish you success in advance. After you succeed, you must invite us to the banquet. Yi Qinghan cupped his fists and bowed. Li Feng was an opponent worthy of respect. No matter what grudges they had in the past, this cooperation could be erased. Li Feng nodded and said, "In 100 years, I will definitely invite all the heroes of the world to a banquet." After Li Feng finished speaking, he turned into a ray of sword light and left. Let's go back too. Yi Qinghan led the insane sect back to the Crazed Manor. Along the way, he learned that Yi Linshan had been killed by High God Wuyu. A cold light flashed in his eyes, and he snorted coldly. After we go back, we will reorganize and destroy God's organization. The group valiantly stepped out of the southern wasteland, flying into the sky and burrowing into the ground as they rushed towards the Crazed Manor. After a day, the group returned to the Crazed Manor and immediately went into seclusion in a different space. Yi Qinghan took out all the precious medicines and divine pills he had obtained and distributed a large number of 5th-grade secret techniques to everyone. He also placed the godheads of the superior gods on the table for those who needed them. The Tianhun godhead was given to Emperor Yi. The god-slaying eagle obtained the only Lord-level secret technique that had appeared so far. The eagle strikes the 9th heaven. However, the group could not cultivate it, and they could not even use it as a reference. They could not understand it at all. When the 9 Remoteness Lord found out about the Lord-level secret technique, he rushed over from the 9 Remoteness plane and forcefully borrowed the eagle strikes the 9th heaven. The god-slaying eagle was helpless, and it could not compete with him. Everyone began to meditate on the secret technique of the 15th rank high god offering. Yi Qinghan, on the other hand, was rummaging through the Qianquan rings and sorting out all the treasures. When he came to the items that were given to him in the first stage, he sighed and ordered his men to bring the Qianquan rings and their last words back to their clans. After sorting out the treasures, Yi Qinghan accidentally discovered a 5th grade fire elemental secret technique that could allow his fire origin to quickly advance to the 5th grade, which was the realm of a superior god. He was immediately overjoyed, and after returning to the alternate dimension and cultivating diligently for several decades, he finally advanced his fire origin to the 14th grade, which was the realm of a superior god great perfection. After that, he began to refine his physical body and raised it to the realm of a superior god great perfection. His cultivation had increased by more than 10 times. At this moment, even without the god-severing gloves, Yi Qinghan was confident that he could fight Li Feng. Several decades had passed in the different space, but only a few days had passed in the outside world. Everyone was cultivating diligently and comprehending the secret technique. Emperor Yi had been painstakingly cultivating and comprehending the godhood of a high-level heavenly soul in the alternate dimension. After 3 months in the outside world, he had finally been promoted to a high-level god priest. He was overjoyed. The crazed manor finally had a high-level god priest of its own. While the Kuang sect was cultivating diligently, the tomb of the god of sin suddenly went out of control. The gate opened and more than 100 experts rushed out. They looked as if they had just survived a disaster. Their legs were trembling and they couldn't even stand up. The Feng Yun 3 heavens looked at each other and left the tomb of the god of sin. Wuyo and heaven and earth high god were covered in blood, especially heaven and earth high god. Even his heart was dug out and eaten by a mutated divine beast. It was extremely tragic. If it wasn't for his tenacious will, he would have died long ago. Greedy Wolf Exalted roared at the sky. Now he only had his left arm left. His right arm was torn off and eaten by a divine beast. He was extremely angry. Who is that damned young bastard? I'm going to kill him. Greedy Wolf Exalted roared. His hatred for Yi Qinghan didn't decrease. Instead, it increased. His name is Yi Qinghan. He is a mansion master of the mythological dimension. If Brother Greedy Wolf is interested, we are willing to work together to uproot the Kuang sect. Wuyo roared in a low voice. Humph. Wait for me for 3 years. I will heal my injured body first. I will let him know the consequences of offending me. Greedy Wolf Exalted was furious. His eyes were filled with ferocity. He couldn't wait to crush Yi Qinghan into pieces. There were more than 80 superior god priests left. More than 30 of them were terrifying young elites. They were not inferior to the superior god priests. At this moment, they had an inexplicable hatred for Yi Qinghan. Perhaps this was the reason why Yi Qinghan was the first to rush out of the tomb of the god of sin. Most of them had obtained a lot of treasures. At this moment, they weren't in a hurry to take revenge on Yi Qinghan. Instead, they returned to their own mansions and started to heal their injured bodies. Once they came out of seclusion, they would definitely gather together to take revenge on Yi Qinghan. Chapter 708. 3 months later, an envoy from the 3 clear divine nation arrived and handed over 1/3 of the territory near Kuang Manor to them. Mu Failong was dumbfounded. He couldn't accept this at all. He led his army to resist Kuang Manor's army. Lu Zhantian personally led the Iron Dragon army to the city gates. Most of the Mu clan's troops were defeated without a fight. The remaining forces did not dare to resist and surrendered. Mu Failong was unwilling to give up. In the end, everyone betrayed him. Even the Mu clan's manor lord stood up and spoke for him. In the end, he was detained by Lu Zhantian. If Mu Xiaoqi did not plead for mercy, he would have been killed by Lu Zhantian. The Iron Dragon army glared at Mu Feilong. They wanted to kill him and avenge the 300,000 undead. In order to stabilize the army's morale, Lu Zhantian did not even give Mu Xiaoqi face. He directly destroyed Mu Feilong's godhead and turned him into a mortal. The Mu clan's manor lord did not say anything. A piece of trash who offended Quang Manor was not worth his pleading. The 12 mansions declared their loyalty to Quang Manor at the same time. The army was broken up and rebuilt. The manor lord's forces were removed. They could only cooperate with Quang Manor to govern the territory without any special privileges. If they did well, they would be rewarded. If they dared to betray Quang Manor, they would be ruthlessly suppressed by Quang Manor. The manor lords did not dare to complain. Their army had been yearning to join Quang Manor for a long time. The people everywhere even decorated the place with lanterns and streamers to show their welcome. Only then did they know how popular Quang Manor was. At this moment, there was a saying going around everywhere: "Follow Quang Manor and you will have wine and meat." You will no longer have to worry about being oppressed by the strong and becoming a servant of a powerful force. Become a citizen of Quang Manor and make a fortune first, then cultivate later. There were many ways to earn divine crystals. Quang Manor quickly established a series of policies to develop the economy of the various mansions. Quang Manor even allocated funds to help the various mansions set up various projects and activities to attract guests. After reorganizing the territories of the major mansions, the outer sect of the Crazy Sect set up subsects under the 12 major mansions and began to recruit disciples. The promotion of disciples was based on a point system, which was similar to the system of the ancient massacre god. The disciples were divided into 9 ranks. Promotion to rank 1 required a certain number of points. Promotion to rank 2 required 10 times the amount of points. After becoming a rank 2 disciple, the rewards and monthly allowance would be much greater. Divine gems and secret skills were enough to make a rank 1 disciple drool with envy. After becoming a rank 9 disciple, one could be promoted to an inner sect disciple. That was a place that everyone yearned for. Once one became an inner sect disciple, one could directly communicate with Yi Qinghan face to face. There was no need to worry about resources. If one encountered a bottleneck in one's cultivation, there would naturally be a higher god priest who would preach and share his experiences. Therefore, at this moment, the prestige of the 3 major seminaries had suffered a blow. The number 1 cultivation holy land was no longer the 3 seminaries, but the outer sect of the insane sect. Many people racked their brains to get in. Unfortunately, the threshold of the outer sect was even harsher than the seminaries. The first batch of outer sect disciples laughed happily. Their cultivation and talent were far inferior to those who came for the assessment, but they were the first batch of people who followed Yi Qinghan. That was their advantage. The Crazy Sect needed people who could be trusted. Even if their cultivation was not high, they could lead a region because there were people in the inner sect who could intimidate the entire plane. The subsects of the outer sect were set up at the same time. The elders of the outer sect became the masters of the subsects and began to recruit disciples. A large number of elites came, and even the sons of great families came, hoping to join the outer sect. Joining the Crazy Sect was not as simple as one might think. There were 3 tests. The first test was illusion, which was set up by Emperor Yi himself. It tested the cultivators' sincerity to join the Crazy Sect and how much they could contribute to the sect. The second test was perseverance, which was how firm one's heart was. The third test was talent. If one could pass the third test, one might be able to enter the outer sect. If one could not pass the first and second tests, one was not qualified to join the outer sect at all. Therefore, joining the Crazy Sect was no longer a matter of cultivation and combat power, but of the heart of the path. That was the most important. Many super elites could not even pass the first test. They cursed the Crazy Sect and were very disdainful of its practices. However, there were some disciples of poor families who were not even at the imperial level who passed the test. This attracted more and more low-level geniuses to come and take the test. More and more people understood that in the Crazy Sect's assessment, talent came second and loyalty came first. Many people adjusted their mentality and took the test again. Sure enough, they got what they wanted. Emperor Yi was now a superior god, and no one could disguise themselves and escape her illusion. Therefore, those who joined the outer sect were all loyal people. Just as the outer sect was in full swing to expand, Yi Qinghan, who had been cultivating in a different space for 100 years, came out with great strength. His cultivation was stuck at the level of a perfected medium god. He was only half a step away from the level of a superior god. Unfortunately, that layer of paper was harder to break than the barrier of the universe. It would take time to break through. Yi Qinghan shook his body. His whole body was as hard as a medium god weapon. It was condensed again and almost evolved into a superior god weapon. If he faced a superior god priest again, even if the soul-severing gauntlet did not show its power, he might not lose. Cracked that he clenched his iron fist and a powerful aura rose. When he arrived at the southern mountain pass and heard Roger's report, he could not help but nod. He knew that it was time for the crazy sect to establish a divine kingdom. Sure enough, in the afternoon, a piece of news exploded in the mythical realm. The crazy sect would establish the fourth divine kingdom in 2 months, the Crazy Dragon Empire. The Crazy Dragon Empire was the smallest, but it was also the most powerful force. The superior god priest, Shao Xingyang, and his friend had returned. Together with Emperor Yi, the frenzied blade, and the Cannon King, there were 4 superior god priests. Even if the Lord of Abyss did not show up, no force could face the crazy sect alone. In addition, Yi Qinghan's cultivation, the soul-severing gauntlet, and the mythical beast Pai Xiu were more than enough to deal with a superior god priest. Even a superior god priest could not defeat the Pai Xiu. After the news of the establishment of a divine kingdom was released, the 3 colleges of divinity were already dissatisfied with the crazy sect. Now they were even more dissatisfied with the crazy sect. God's organization was even more dissatisfied. The crazy sect had become the 4th divine kingdom right under their noses. More importantly, the 3 divine kingdoms did not oppose the crazy sect's establishment. Damn it! When I wanted to establish a divine kingdom, you disagreed as if your parents had died. Now, a bastard is establishing a divine kingdom, and you are licking your faces to curry favor with him. I will make you regret it one day. God Wu Yu roared angrily. God Qin Kuan sneered and said in a hoarse voice, "Don't be so angry. I want to see how the crazy sect will establish the Crazy Dragon Empire. I have already informed Greedy Wolf Exalted. Maybe there will be a good show at the founding ceremony." When Wu Yo heard Heaven and Earth High God's words, he sneered as if he was watching a good show. Chapter 709. 2 months later, the flowers bloomed in the warm spring. Rows of willow trees swayed in the wind, and the spiritual energy was extremely dense. There were no clouds for thousands of miles, and the sky was clear. Birds flew in the sky, and the streams were so clear that the bottom could be seen. Crazed Manor had become the most beautiful holy land. The most popular place for handsome men and beautiful women was Crazed Manor. There were no foppish young masters here, and there was no bullying. There was only peace. Wide stone roads extended in all directions, and a long river surrounded the entire Crazed Manor, becoming its moat. There were huge ships on the river, and the young masters and princesses gave up flying to set up banquets on the ships. The founding ceremony of Crazed Manor was about to begin, and many young masters came to watch. The divine lords of the 3 divine kingdoms would personally come to Crazed Manor to congratulate the sect. Many people came because of the 3 divine lords. These 3 were very young, but they were divine lords, so they must be superior gods. They were existences who led the era back then, and were idols in many people's hearts, just like Yi Qinghan. The old monsters of the 3 divine kingdoms would come, including the ancestors of Longyuan and Martial Destruction Divine Kingdom. After all, they owed Yi Qinghan their lives. As for the 3 old men of Shangqing and Yuqing, even though Yi Qinghan had taken 1/3 of their territories, they still had to give face to Yi Qinghan. The old deans of the 3 divine kingdoms also received invitations. Although they didn't want to come, if they didn't go, it would be tantamount to falling out with Yi Qinghan. How could they not come? All the overlords and the remaining superior gods of the mythical realm had received invitations. Now, Yi Qinghan was no longer the young man who relied on Nine Nether. Instead, he was someone who could defeat the superior gods with his fists alone. In addition to Xiao Xingyang, the Canon King, Reverend Xianqing, and Emperor Yi, there were 4 superior gods of the insane faction. In addition to the 7 superior gods that Yi Qinghan had saved, there were more than a dozen superior gods of the insane faction. Who would dare to stand shoulder to shoulder with the insane faction? Before the various overlords and divine nations experts arrived at the crazed manor, the 7 overgods of the voracious wolf plane each invited a superior god priest to the mythical plane. Although superior gods could not enter other planes during peacetime, it was different if they were invited by a divine nation. The aura of 14 higher god priests was enough to scare someone to death. The evil dominator represented the evil faction. At this moment, there were almost 20 superior gods of the insane faction, and each of them was strong. Yi Qinghan personally welcomed them, giving them enough face. Outside the southern mountain pass, Yi Qinghan, dressed in green, greeted the experts of the voracious wolf plane along with the Canon King and Xiao Zhengyang. Manor Lord Yi, congratulations on establishing the insane faction. Haha, we should call you Divine Lord Yi now. The 2 superior gods, Qing Luo and Wu Jingtian, laughed. Everyone congratulated him, and it was very lively. Thank you all for coming. It is the insane faction's honor. Yi Qinghan's aura was as clear as jade, neither servile nor overbearing. The aura of a heroic king radiated from him like a god. He casually gestured and said, "Everyone, please come in. Tomorrow is the grand ceremony." The Southern Mountain Pass Army was excited, and their military formation was uniform. Even their gait was particularly imposing. Now that the insane faction was here, they were even more confident and proud. Dong dong dong. Roger personally led 10,000 men captains to beat the sky-shaking drum. The sound of the drum shook the heavens and echoed across the sky, welcoming the arrival of the experts. Any divine nation that had such a high morale was considered a trump card. The Southern Mountain Pass army of 300,000 showed the world how righteous the insane faction's army was. The sound of the drum shook the blood of the superior gods. Even the superior gods felt their blood was boiling as they walked. The insane faction's flag was raised, and a dragon soared into the sky. The Southern Mountain Pass army's flag was a wolf, a lone and proud wolf that represented the will of the Southern Mountain Pass Army. It fought like a wolf, fierce and merciless. The chiefs of the 3 divine nations and the other factions arrived from behind. They could not help but tremble when they saw the Southern Mountain Pass Army's aura. Their armies were nothing compared to the Southern Mountain Pass Army. Dong 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 dong. The sound of the drum was deafening. The armies of the Northgard Fortress, the Dongxia Fortress, and the Gan Mountain Pass started beating their drums, officially welcoming the heroes of the world. The insane faction's aura soared into the sky. The Steel Dragon Army, the Ancient Godly Massacre Army, Lulan's Blade, the Dragon Riders, and the Southern Mountain Pass Army all unleashed their auras. The faces of the experts who came to watch the ceremony paled. They frowned, feeling like the insane faction was trying to intimidate them. If the 5 armies worked together, none of the divine nations would stand a chance against them. At that moment, a figure suddenly rushed out of the wild sect. His spear pierced through space and time. The aura of the upper plane was in harmony with heaven and earth. His fighting will was almost heaven-defying. That fighting will could be felt clearly from thousands of miles away. It made people's breath stagnate. Zhang Chuanxiu caught up with the others. He was the first to reach the superior god realm with the help of a superior god's divine spear. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The 4 heaven-destroying swords tore through the air. 4 different sword intents were superior to the sword Dao. They worked together to suppress the great Dao of a mythical realm. The heavens and earth rumbled, and all laws submitted to them. Above the insane faction, Xian Yanxue, Gu Qingyu, Yi Feng, and Xia Qiyue unleashed their strength at the same time. The 4 of them had reached the superior god realm almost at the same time. It had only taken them 5 months in the outside world, but it had taken them 1,500 years in the alternate space. Before the crowd could react, the space above the insane faction suddenly twisted, as if someone had torn it apart. A terrifying aura suppressed the crowd. Even the superior god realm priests were shocked. The heaven-destroying art. Yi Qinghan's eyes widened. He did not expect Xia Ziluo to reach the superior god realm as soon as she reappeared. There was a flash of white light. A peerless beauty traveled across the universe and descended beside Yi Qinghan. Her peerless beauty eclipsed the world. Medusa had also broken through. In 1,500 years, 8 superior god realm priests had appeared in the insane faction. When Medusa appeared, the divine masters of the various divine kingdoms, the overlords, the deans, and the old deans all took a step back. They looked at Medusa and felt ashamed of their inferiority. She was too perfect, so perfect that they could not look at her directly. Medusa's beauty was soul-stealing, while Emperor Ye's beauty was approachable. They were two completely different concepts. Gu Qingyu and the others all descended behind Yi Qinghan. They stood in an orderly manner with their swords in their arms. Yi Qinghan didn't really want to put on a show of strength, but it was too much of a coincidence that they had all made their breakthroughs at the same time. Most likely, the people from the various divine kingdoms and academies were having a mental breakdown. Stimulated by the superior god realm priest's aura, the 4 armies' aura became even stronger. Their roars shook the sky, and the heaven-shaking drum was almost shattered. Even the ground within 1,000 miles began to tremble. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.